So, no, there's no. It's very hard to do. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Professor, how you doing?
I'm good. Gonna give everybody a few more minutes because we had a classroom change, so just hang tight, okay?
I'm here.
All right, awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You can see me okay?
I see there you are. I see
Oh,
you.
okay. All right, just want to make sure. I don't know which way that camera's aiming, but it's this way. All right. So it looks like there should be about 8 of us in here. So, and you can see everything that's on the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay. All right.
I'm working on problem 10 on quiz number 2 right now.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, we'll give everybody a few minutes. We were supposed to be in 225 or 242, and that classroom, that's not a good classroom. So they moved us down to here, so I got here quick enough to get set up. So it'll probably be a few minutes by the time people figure out we're in the wrong room. So
Okie dokie.
hang tight, finish your quiz, work on your stuff.
No one's here, Dr. Houston?
Not yet, I got one online. We just changed classrooms though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I went down and thought, where is she?
Well, we shouldn't be in the Fleet Force room. There's, all their stuff is in there and all the
No.
stuff's on the board and you can't write on it. And they left me a square about this big and then they have all their posters, all their stuff, their printer and everything. And I'm like,
No.
we should not be in there anymore. So I
No.
was like, nope.
No. Okay, well, I'll message you tomorrow because they wanted me since last month to go around and do head counts
Okay,
and to see how many students actually come to the tech classes
okay,
or are online
okay,
or do the Zoom.
okay.
So anyway, I message you tomorrow, see if anybody came or not, unless you're talking
Do
to.
you want physical seats or do you just want all together total of?
I want to break down who's
breakdown,
actually
okay.
in person
Right,
and who's on Zoom.
okay,
And I don't care if they just go online,
okay, all right. no
but like, what was it last? Oh, maybe it was the first week of May. She had 4 classes. And not one student came to. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna give everybody a few more minutes and at 6:45, I'm going to start. Okay. All right, well, I'm gonna get started. It is 6:45, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. I don't know if the other people are lost, or if everybody thought they could do it online or what. I mean, this is a live lecture. You can take the class any way you choose to do so. Unless you have certain circumstances that requires you to physically be on campus. And you would know who you are if you are one of those folks. So we'll just go from there. So I've got my contact info inside the course, so you have that as well. So it might be confusing. My last name is Houston in the email, but my last name is Brooks. I just got married, so the school hasn't changed everything over. So I'm Dr. Brooks now. So sometimes, yeah, if you call me Dr. Houston, I still reply to that. That's my personal cell phone. So if you do text me, just tell me who you were and what class you're in, because I have multiple classes. If you run into any issues, any problems, anything like that. Because there are due dates on the assignments, if you go to turn something in late, it's not going to let you submit. So you're going to have to message me and go, hey, I'm turning something in late. Can you adjust the dates so you can submit? And I will go ahead and do that. So that's that. I'm guessing since Reva knew who you were, you have taken other courses. You've been in lots of classes, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, okay.
I had you, I think I had you a couple of months ago. I had you one of the prior class.
Okay.
That was,
Well, I just started doing the wheel, so I'm kind of I've been out of the regular classes for a little bit. So I've been doing the wheel now for the last month, but yeah, I taught regular classes here and online. So now this class I got asked, and then next week starts my other HR class. So 2 HR classes at the same time. So lots of confusing fun, but yeah. Anyway, you probably have read my bio at this point. So I've been an HR director, a staff development director, HR for profit, HR for nonprofit, did a master's in HR, did a master's in nonprofit management, did a doctorate in business with a concentration in HR. Moved here last August, bought a condo on the water.
Welcome to Florida.
Well, here's the thing. I moved to Florida in 2000. And then in 2016, I left Key West Naval Air Station and took a job in Kentucky for a year. I left there and took a job in Texas for a year. I left there and I went to China for 2 years. Then I came home right before the pandemic was spreading on mainland US. And then I took a job as soon as I got home to South Carolina for a year. And then after South Carolina, I had an opportunity to go to Hawaii, and I went to Hawaii for almost 2 years. And then I came home last summer to visit some friends, and there was an opportunity to come here to teach. And I was like, oh, it'd be so nice to come back to Florida and come home. So I said, sure. And I never lived in Fort Myers or Naples. I was like, all right, as long as I'm near water and I can fish, I'll be good. And so I bought a condo on the water. I started, new AC unit. I started working on it, started fixing it up, and watched my Jeep get off the truck because I had shipped her from Hawaii. And then I watched her go underwater, and I watched like 5 boats on top of her. And then I cried a little bit, and then I rode the storm out in my condo because I didn't leave. And by the time I was gonna leave, I couldn't leave. Watched my neighbor's roof leave, and I went, oh, I'm gonna get sucked through the rafters. This is it. It's like, no joke. And I've been through 14 hurricanes, but just never in the eye wall of this big of one. I was like in Central Florida, or, it brushed past us in the Keys and it wasn't a big deal. And I watched Irma hit the Keys because I was in Texas the weekend Harvey hit. And I was in Louisiana when Cindy hit, right where Katrina had hit. So I'm not a fan of hurricanes, but I've definitely, so I've been working on my house since then. All I've been doing is kitchen and bathrooms and fixing the roof, fixing the ceilings, and that's all I've been doing. Dealing with Lowe's and contractors and all the rest of that drama. So that's all that I've been doing. Met somebody 5 days before I left Hawaii, got engaged in Napa on New Year's, and then got married last month. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's been a whirlwind year. This was move 84 for me. So I've moved a lot. I've been a lot. I do a lot of contracting work, still teaching online for China and helping them out. This is my last week, so I finished up with them. Let's see, been all over the world, done lots of traveling. I like to travel quite a bit, so I like to go different places. So spent some time in Cuba, spent some time in Australia, Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, all over the place. I was all over China. They just sent me every couple months to a new university, and I taught for a few months and went to the next university and taught for a few months, and had a great time. Actually, one of my coworkers from China is in Cambodia, and he arrives this weekend. He's going to come and help me with my bathrooms because I'm doing those myself. So he's going to come help me do that for a few weeks. And then my best friend from China, she's coming after that. And I'm going to see if she'll do a guest speak in some of my classes. So she'll be here to kind of talk about how things are a little different in different places, and how contracts work in the HR world. Because over there, everything is a contract. You don't just get a job, it's all contract. So she'll talk a little bit about how, that's different. And so we'll talk about that. Let's see here. What else? I think that's
I took an international business class, and that was interesting just to see the difference in the American style compared to overseas. So that's a great class that I took.
Yeah, no, in international business, it's just a different world, right? Because we do GAAP. We have generally accepted accounting principles. Nobody else in the world does GAAP.
Yep.
So anybody who does accounting in America goes, oh, yeah, it's worthless in other countries. What I learned in China is, how like in America, we talk about somebody cooking the books and they do illegal books, right? So they have one set of books that, you know, the IRS gets, and they have their, how much money they really make. In China, they have 3 sets of books.
Wow.
They have one for the government, they have one that's real, and then they have one for the province, because they'll pop in on their own and kind of look at your books. So it's you're making 3 different fake books, and I'm like, how does anybody keep up with that? But I met a lady who did accounting, and she told me about that, and I was like, holy cow. So
Yes, that's probably a very high paying job over there than accounting.
well, you know what? Bachelor's degree in China, believe it or not, a factory job over there is anywhere from $5,000 a year to $8,000 if you're working at a factory, and that's no education. And then, like, you know, a regular job, you're making, I think my girlfriend makes, as a college teacher over there, she's making like $13,000 a year with a master's degree, and I just want to cry. You know, and then, like, I met a kid who was 23 with 2 Teslas, who his parents own a marketing firm, and that kid rolled up with some Starbucks for me and was like, which car do you want to drive? And I was like, what? And like, he took me and a whole bunch of students, and we went on a trip, and like took us to marketing places and 3D printing. And yeah, that kid was 23 and had just graduated college and was running it like vice president of his parents' marketing firm. And I don't know how much money that kid was making. And I was like, well, good for you.
Yeah.
So different world for sure, for sure. So okay, so let's so what do you do if I'm allowed to ask?
I work for a local county government.
Oh, okay, alrighty.
Yeah, almost 23 years. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I spent a long time teaching sheriff deputies over in Palm Beach County. I had 400 of those. I was stationed at the Florida State Fire College for a year, so I did a lot of fire service work. And so, yeah, so my master's in pub allowed me to do a lot of teaching with government folks, because generally that's what a lot of people do their masters in, is public administration, because that's what they're looking for in the government.
Yeah, see, and I didn't want to do that. My wife is a nurse, so I wanted to get out of that field work altogether. After,
okay.
So I have an associate in business administration, and then I'm going to go to the healthcare services administration. So when our son gets old enough, we can start doing traveling.
That works. That works. Yeah. Healthcare administration is a good deal. You know, I tell people all the time, like, healthcare and law enforcement. Well, law enforcement, no, but healthcare isn't going away anytime soon.
No.
You'll always pay warm, fuzzy humans to come take care of you. Law enforcement, though, is going away. That's going to be RoboCop and AI cars here pretty soon, because Ford's already made that announcement that they've got a car that can detect where to pull people over and give them the best tickets in 2025. It'll be driverless. So you know what, RoboCop's coming, man. We don't need humans in that department anymore. And then everything won't be biased. It'll just be straight up whatever the computer decided, right?
Let it last until at least
Skynet.
20 until retirement. That's all I need. I need 3 more years.
Yeah. So, but you know, by year 2030, though, knowledge will be at the point where we'll be doubling instantaneously. So that's where I kind of tell people, like, we kind of need to look at things differently at that point, because that's going to be a crucial year for knowledge and things of that nature. So all right, so let me run through the course here. You know, announcements. I did put a couple announcements in here. Classroom change. So you guys could take a peek there and see what we did. And I will, let's see here, this lets me, I'll put a new in there. So class change to 225. You put H225. Course is now in room 225. Put that in there so we have it. So anytime I finish a class, It'll be the next day when I actually post the Zoom information. So if you do miss a live class, you can go to the Zoom recording. And I'll post that in the announcements section, so you'll always know where that's at. We go to the syllabus. Here's contact information. My office is in this building, H358. I am generally here a couple hours before class, but if you need to meet with me for any reason, just text me, call me and say, hey, can I meet with you? I can either meet with you before class or after class. I am on campus Tuesdays and I am on campus Wednesdays. I have a Wednesday night class that goes from 6 to 10. And then you guys, of course, 6:30 to 9:50. So you guys have a couple days a week that I'll be here. And if you need to meet with me, just call me. You know, I'll figure something out. I'm about a half-hour drive from campus. I'm in South Fort Myers down by San Carlos Park. Let's see here. I gotta change that lecture thing to H242. Let me fix that quick. Gotta fix that. There we go. There we go. Okay, so this typically is a lecture course. If you decide to not come, you can do it online. If you have permission, you can do TEC, your choice. So again, make sure you read through course expectations, read the syllabus, make sure you know how many hours a week you're going to have to dedicate. We're looking at different topics in this class and techniques for HR. A lot of people assume that HR is just, oh, you're in the HR office, you just hire people and you just let them know when they're gone, right? Like, I kind of look at it as we're from birth to death of your job, right? We recruit you, we hire you, we train you, we develop you, we promote, demote, write up or promote up, succession plan, and then out the door. So again, we do a lot of different things with you, employee assistance counseling, right? There's a lot of things. So we do payroll, you know, we try to keep our people happy, except, let me preface this, a lot of the stuff that we do is being outsourced. And if it's not being outsourced, it's automated. And if it's not being outsourced or automated, now it's AI. And so then you say, well, what do you actually do as an HR person? And the role has drastically changed. We kind of were born in the 80s. Companies started to realize that there needed to be a department that like knew all the HR laws, employment laws, because that's kind of, you know, some of the laws got put into play in the 60s and 70s. And then in the 90s, some more, you know, FMLA and some other laws kind of came into play. But, you know, we became a cost center. Companies spent a lot of money on us, and companies kind of got angry because they were like, we're spending all this money on you. And we couldn't at the time say, this is how we save you money. But now companies are realizing that you got to have HR. If you can't afford to do HR in-house, a lot of companies will outsource it and they'll have an outside agency do it. Sometimes that's more money, but they do a better job because that's their whole entire focus. It isn't on all this other stuff. So HR has drastically changed. It's changing every day. There's new changes, especially when it comes to IT. You know, you may have video interviews now. I've done a couple of those this last year. I don't really like them, but I've gotten to the point where I'm okay. Like, I'm just like, all right, fine, I'll do it, whatever. And you do the video interview, and then after that, you might get a live human being when you're done. So it kind of depends. ADP, Deloitte, some of the big companies out there, Manpower, that, you know, are doing a lot of the HR functions that we used to do at one point in time. We have dashboards now at organizations where somebody just says, oh, hey, I just got hired. Like, what do I do about healthcare and vision and dental? And they're like, go to this website, don't bother me. And that has been my experience at different places. Is it's a hands off, don't talk to me. go to the website, you have to get your card on the website, you have to do this on the website, you have to pick, and then you have to read all these things to figure out which one's the best. There is nobody sitting down with you. I can remember when I started doing HR 20 something years ago, I sat down and explained benefits to people, went over all the healthcare plans. What is a 403B? What is a 401k? There is none of that anymore. That's gone. No humans do that anymore. It's all self-service. It's all a dashboard. So we've cut that whole portion of the job out. Recruiting, you got companies that, you know, do recruiting for you. But the other thing that you also have is you've got machines now that they will put an advertisement out for you on the computer. They'll put it on the network, they'll put it on the internet, and it'll say, we are looking for a detail-oriented HR generalist that is bilingual, that can do this. Must have a 2-year degree, right? I put that out there on the web. Now, some people are smart because in government jobs, if you go to USA Jobs and you're looking for a government job, everybody that knows anything about those jobs will tell you the same thing. You take a portion of what it says they're looking for and you throw that at the bottom of your resume, because when their big computer scans all the resume applications, the thousands that they get for a job, it'll scan and go, oh my gosh, this person's a 98% match. And it's because you've cut and pasted half the job advertisement in your resume. So you got to make sure that those key words that companies are saying they're looking for something, make sure those key words or phrases are in your resume. I can't stress that enough. Remove dates. Don't tell anybody when you went to high school. You don't even have to tell anybody when you went to college anymore. You just say you got a degree. And then you want to make sure you clarify what that degree is, right? So one of the things that we'll do in classes, we'll talk about cover letters, we'll talk about resumes. I'm really good with these things. I've taught professional development and career counseling classes for a long time. I've career counseled a lot of people. You know, how to make that the most robust and get it good looking. You know, what are things people are looking for right now? Do they want a 20-page resume? Do they want a 1-page resume? You know, we'll talk about all these things. This will be a good class for you personally and professionally. Course learning outcomes, this is all the different stuff we'll go. We'll talk about, you know, what HR does and how we fit in an organization at this point. We'll talk about laws. We'll talk about that kind of stuff as well. So these are some of the things that we will talk about. And let me... I see another error in here. Everything in here should be 7th edition, not 6th. There we go, 7th edition. Something else to keep in mind, when it comes to doing APA, citationmachine.net is a good website to go to. The University of Purdue, the OWL is another website to go to, but also you got Reva down in the library. And Reva helps students all the time with APA. She's very, very good at that. So, you know, please reach out to her if you're struggling with APA. I am a stickler on APA. The good news is in this class, you know, the cover letter, the resume, I don't need a cover letter. I don't need a cover page. So you don't have to write an APA cover page on those things. But, you know, you do need to cite sources and things like that if you are going to write anything else. So just keep that in mind. Your textbook in here, Managing Human Resources, 17th edition. This is the Cengage textbook. Make sure you use an APA. You have the Wall Street Journal available through the library, and I actually put the citationmachine.net website on there for you. If you do want to reach out to me, you can send me a direct email because it comes to me right away. However, text message is probably the fastest way to get an answer from me. You know, anywhere from 8 a.m. to probably about 11 p.m. I'm on my phone. I have my phone with me. I sleep next to that thing, so a text message is probably the quickest way to get an answer, especially if it's Sunday night. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get this assignment submitted. And then all of a sudden you don't know about something, and then that's when you reach out to me. So again, you guys have different things that you guys are going to be working on in here. Okay. You've got a lot of different resources available. And then keep in mind, every Sunday is the end of a week. So, you know, we start class on a Monday, it ends Sunday that week, each week. So try to get your stuff submitted by Sunday. That's when all the cutoffs are, the due dates are. If you do need to turn something in late, you're gonna have to message me, and I will have to be able to get to a computer and make that submission, and I'll make it for the next week so you have some time to turn it in. But keep in mind what the late policy says, and I'd rather you turn something in late than not turn it in at all, okay? So let's look at our first module. So about the instructor, you've got a short bio here on me. All my degrees, different places I've been. I moved 84 times. I've been all over the place, and I'm old. So been to lots of places, seen lots of things, worked for nonprofit, for-profit. I've been a contractor, which is a 1099 employee. I worked overseas. I've worked in Canada. I've been in Cuba working, China working. So I've been in different places, working different kinds of jobs. Believe it or not, when I was in Canada working, I was a migrant farm worker. And in China, I didn't teach English, I was a business professor. Everybody always assumes when I say China, they're like, oh, you must be there teaching English. I'm like, I don't teach English. I teach APA, but I'm a business professor. So I've taught general education courses. I've been a dean, campus director, associate dean, career counselor, recruiter, advisor. I've been all over the state. I've been a marketing director, HR, owned a couple companies. I've done all kinds of different stuff, but I like teaching the most. There again, my cell phone number and how to email me. So access to your book, how to get into all your topics, okay. Module 1, which is week 1. We'll look at chapters 1 and chapters 2, and that's what I'll lecture on tonight. One of the things that I put in here, this is like one of my favorite things to look at, and it is the most asked interview questions. And you might say to yourself, well, good grief, I could care less. You know, I have a good job, I don't care. Well, at some point, you might know somebody who's going to do an interview. Might be your kids, might be a friend, might be your partner, might be you down the road. You might be interviewing somebody, right? So you can be on both sides of this table. So try to have an open mind with this when we're looking at this. Again, so tell me about yourself. This question, I always look at this and I giggle because I call it the 2 minutes of, you know, used car. Here I am. You know, this is why you want to purchase me. That's kind of the way I look at. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's like the used car deal. So tell me about yourself. Now, this is where people make a mistake. They're like, well, I got 5 kids and I'm married. No. You don't ever tell anybody you're married. You don't tell anybody about your kids. You only do that if it's pertinent to the job. If you're going to go work at a daycare, I love kids. I got 10. Okay, great. You know, if there's a requirement for you to disclose certain things, like you're going to work at a Catholic school, a Methodist school, a Baptist school, and they're like, we need to know your religion. They're going to ask for a personal statement of faith. So, you know, you don't have to disclose any of that. You'll have to disclose it to them, and they have the right to, you know, discriminate against you if you're not religious or not. So again, the tell me about yourself is a snapshot. And they call it the elevator pitch because if you met a famous person that was like, you know, Warren Buffett in an elevator, And he said, tell me about yourself. What are you gonna say? Well, I have my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate degree. I've been teaching for the last 20 years. I've lived all over the world. I've taught, I've marketed, I've HR, I've social worked, I've done all these different kinds of jobs. And now, right, so I talked about the past, then I talked currently, I am doing this. And in the future, this is what I'd like to do. So it's past, present, and future. So most girls will know the past, present, and future because it's a diamond ring setting. But for anybody else out there that may not know that, it's past, present, and future in 2 minutes. Now you might go, oh, 2 minutes isn't enough time. It's a snapshot. Time yourself. Can you do the 2 minutes? So something to think about. So what are your strengths? Only pick 3. What are your weaknesses? Only pick 3. This is where I see people struggle. They're like, well, what do I say for a weakness? Well, if you're not multi or bilingual, that's what I would write down. Unless the job's requesting that, then, you know, that's a different case. But here's what you say. I am not bilingual. I do not speak Spanish. However, I work on my Spanish un poquito every day. En poquito hablo español, poquito español. So I work on my Spanish a little every day, right? I have this nice little app called Duolingo and I work on my Spanish every day. So whenever you say you have a weakness, say how you're working on it. You know, I don't have my bachelor's degree yet, but I am working on it. So something to think about. Why should we hire you? You don't throw the other people under the bus. I had an interview years ago and there was this woman sitting in the lobby with me. And I mean, she just looked like she could be my mom. She just had this warm, natural glow to her. She looked like she brought cookies to the interview. I was like, I'm not gonna win. This lady's gonna win. She looks nice and friendly and warm. And she just had that I just wanna hang out with you because you're just so nice and friendly. She just had that about her. I don't have that. I scare people apparently. So that woman got the job over me. I got asked that on a date. I did not get the job. The guy asked me out on a date. I was like, okay, this is not going in the direction I wanted it to. She got the job, right? But when somebody, if you're in a room, I've done cattle calls, as we call it. So there was a university that asked for people who wanted to come teach. And they did a 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and they made it sound like I was having an interview. It says, dress professionally, bring your resume, you know, we'll see you at 2 o'clock. I was like, okay. I got there was 45 people in the room, and I was angry. I was like, oh, this is a cattle call, and I don't like to be here with all these people, because then you're lost in the herd. You know, how do you make yourself stand out in 45 people in a room? And at the time, you know, I just had a master's degree. That's it. Like there wasn't anything special about me. So you have to be careful when they say, well, why should we hire you? And that's where you say, you don't throw anybody under the bus. Well, I'm better than her. I'm better than him. You just say confidently, right? I have the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you're looking for. And above and beyond that, I bring this to the table. That's all you can do, really. But you don't want to throw anybody under the table. So something to think about. Why do you want to work for this company? You better have done your research. I've asked people this question. I said, well, why do you want to work for us? I just need a job. Go away. Bye. I'm not interested in hiring anybody who needs a job, right? Because you have a job, it's something you do, it's hourly, it's salary, you don't enjoy it, it's not where you want to be the rest of your life. A career, that's what you're in school for. A career is something you do long term. A job is you're just there. It's not anything, you're just there for a short amount of time. You know, maybe you have jobs in high school. You don't call anything you did in high school a career. I delivered newspapers. Now, for some people, that might be a career because they're doing it 20, 30 years. But if you go to college, you get a degree, you don't go back to going to deliver newspapers because that is not the job. Maybe you work at the newspaper. So make sure you do your homework, show your mindset, salary expectations. This is interesting. If you go to glassdoor.com, Glassdoor.com will show you what the salary expectations are. Indeed, will give you estimates. But here's the thing, Florida pays terrible. Florida does not pay well. There's healthcare, that's what Florida pays. They don't pay teachers anything. Law enforcement don't get paid very well here. South Carolina doesn't pay very well either. I lived there and I was horrified. Texas paid well. I got paid well in Texas. But again, it just depends where you're at. I was out in Hawaii and Hawaii money was magical. However, rent was $3,100 a month for a studio. So it was $25 for a drink. If you went out for dinner for two, it was like $450. It was some serious money out there, crazy money out there. Most expensive place I've ever lived was Hawaii. Most expensive place I ever visited was Australia because it was even more expensive. So again, salary expectations, I do my homework. If it's a state or a government job, guess what? You can look that up on the internet. They can't hide that information from you. Now, if it's a salary range, guess what? You're never going to get hired at the top of the salary range. Unless there's special circumstances and they will go to the moon and back for you because they absolutely need you. And you might say, well, when is that situation? They can't, it's a hard to fill position. You teach math or science or you're nursing, right? Because those are hard positions to fill. If I applied at a community college, most community colleges, not in Florida, we don't have any anymore, but community colleges in other states, they don't need a doctorate degree to teach. So if I applied at one of those, they would absolutely hire me over somebody with just a master's because I had the highest level of education and they could say, oh, we have a doctoral person teaching. They would try to hire me at the highest salary scale they could to keep me or to get me interested to come. So salary expectations, if you overshoot and be like, yeah, I want $50 an hour and the position pays 12 to 13, yeah. Your answer better be a little less than $50 an hour. So be very mindful of that. And don't undersell yourself. How'd you hear about this opportunity? That's pretty easy. They're asking that question for two reasons. To help them understand if what they've spent on the marketing for the position has paid back, or if you know somebody at the organization. Give that person a heads up if you have an interview, or if you're asking your references to give you a reference, give them a heads up. Why did you leave your last job? Yeah, don't be honest. Here's the thing. They can call your previous position, and the only thing your previous employer is allowed to say is the dates you were employed, what your job title was. And that's kind of about it. They could ask one other question. Are you rehirable? Are you eligible for rehire? And if they say no, then they've got their answer, like something happened, right? Now, I left the job once at a university and they asked me for a 2-month notice. I was like, 2 months? I was like, I don't know if I'm going somewhere for 2 months. Like, 2 weeks is generally accepted everywhere. Give us a 2-week notice, right? Or a month notice, right? 60 days, I didn't give a 60-day notice. I gave a 2-week notice. And they marked me ineligible for rehire because I violated the policy. So that's a situation where I have to explain that because somebody says, oh, well, you're not. I said, yeah, I left. I gave a 2-week notice instead of a 60-day notice. And then, I had to explain that. I had a position a couple years ago. I was a dean of a college and they replaced me. They eliminated my position and gave my job to somebody in India because they could pay him like $600 a month versus what they were paying me. So my job got outsourced to cheaper labor. Yeah, don't go there with the why you're fired. What's your previous relationship like? Don't throw anybody under the bus no matter what you do. This question is probably the most asked question I get is how do you handle conflict in the workplace? How did you handle conflict with your boss or with a colleague? And you're going to have to come up with a really well-crafted answer for that. Gaps in your resume. What were you doing? I was in school. That's always a nice answer. Or I took some time off to care for a family member. Guess what? Nobody can hate on you for that. Things to improve upon. They're gonna know who your references are. What's your career goal? This is where I used to get in trouble when I was young. I used to tell people I wanted their job. Yeah, nobody wants to hear that. But when I was young, that's what I used to say. Now I just say, I want to be employed at your organization for the rest of my life. Much better answer. Are you willing to travel? Always. Are you willing to work more than 40 hours a week? Now, here's the funny thing. In other countries, they have 50-hour work weeks. China, the common HR person in China works an 80-hour work week. I wrote my master's thesis on working in China doing HR. Yikes.
Yikes.
But the fun part about China is about 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock throughout the whole entire country. Everybody takes a nap behind their desk. It's like kindergarten. Everybody rolls out a little mat and they go to sleep. I was trying to get stuff done on campus and I was like, oh, I finished class. I went to the canteen, I ate. And then my friend was like, what are you doing? I said, I'm gonna go down. She goes, no, it's sleep time. I'm like, what? She's like, it's sleep time. She's like, no work from 1 o'clock to 2:30. I was like, you are joking. She goes, no. And everybody scoops down their food real quick. And then it's the quicker you eat, the more sleep time you get. So everybody takes that power nap for like an hour and a half. Nothing gets done. Nobody is awake. It is super taboo to be running around on campus while everybody else is put down for a nap. So things that I learned, some countries, the lunch break is 2 hours long and you can drink wine. Italy. Most countries have a 1 month time off. We don't have 1 month time off. Good grief. We get 2 weeks or a week if you're lucky. You've been somewhere solid 15, 20 years, maybe you'll get a month off. And you can't take it all at the same time. In other countries, you get a month off when you start. And a lot of 32,000 companies went to a 32-hour work week during COVID to kind of see if that boosted productivity, and it did. It did drastically. So I'm all about the 4-day work week. I hate Fridays anyway. Can you describe a mistake that you made? Be careful about this slippery slope. What accomplishments are you most proud of? Okay, so are you willing to work on holidays or weekends? This is a trick question. Can anybody tell me why?
If you say yes, they're going to ask you to work that every time.
That's true, but also it has to do with your religion.
Sundays.
Well, Sundays, if you're Christian, if you're Seventh-day Adventist, you don't work Saturdays.
Yeah.
So right there that, oh, well, I don't celebrate Christmas. Okay. That tells me some stuff. You're not Christian, right? Are you Jewish? You could do, you might celebrate Kwanzaa, Ramadan. I mean, there's you might say, well, what holidays? What are you calling holidays, right? So this question is very tricky, and I tell people to be very mindful about this. You want to be flexible sounding, but you don't want them to know too much about you, because they may say, well, I don't know about hiring somebody like you in our organization. Describe a time when you went above and beyond the job. This is a great question. I like to ask this question. Again, would you fire somebody? What did you like least about your previous employer? You got to be super careful about that. Do you have a mentor? All the biggest CEOs, CFOs, COOs, these people, they all have mentors. And then eventually they will turn around and mentor other people. And this is getting to be a question that more and more people are asking business professionals. Do you mentor people if you're, at a certain age, or, where you are in your career, or do you have a mentor? So I have 8 girls that I mentor all over the world. And I've never had a mentor. I've never had anybody. I've had a couple college professors that I looked up to. But nobody that I was ever mentor relationship with or, you know, friends with or anything like that. But there were certain ones that just kind of made me really think about things and, you know, inspired me to do different things. I had a professor in my grad program and he had 3 PhDs. He could speak 7 languages. This man just mesmerized me. I mean, he had a Ferrari his freshman year of college. I mean, he just was an entrepreneur, no joke. He was always hustling. And then I ended up hiring him to teach for me down the road. My first boss teaching college, she worked for me at 3 different schools. So it's kind of funny how things change. Like all of a sudden, you know, that was my first boss and now, you know, I've been her boss a couple times. So
Is that a generational thing? Like I said, in my career, I've had great supervisors, but I've really never had a mentor. So is it a generational thing?
I think it's, you know, if you're in the big business corporate world, there's more mentorship programs. And I think mentorship now is starting to get talked about more in HR. So now companies are going, oh, we should have a mentor program. So I kind of think like in my career, I've worked for small companies. I've never worked for some big monster conglomerate like Procter and Gamble. So I've not had those opportunities. So I think some companies like that have been doing it longer. And now that it's more prominent in HR books and companies are realizing that there's a lot of value with having a mentor, that it's something that more companies are doing. I took mentoring on for 8 different students of mine because they came up and asked me. They said, I would love for you to be my mentor. You know, can I just ask you questions and ideas from time to time? Can we go have lunch every once in a while? And I'm like, sure. You know, so I've never gone out of my way to do it. It's just people have asked because they sought me out. And I think it's great. And maybe that is a generational thing where younger people are looking for people to give them some guidance. And they don't want it to be mom and dad, but they want it to, you know, be somebody that they just look up to maybe. I'm not sure. Not sure. Let's see, what do you like most about this industry? Nobody asks that about teaching. I've never been asked that question. Hold on, somebody's at the door. Hello? Sorry. So we're going over the most asked interview questions right now. Okay, so in the teaching industry, I have never been asked what I like most or like least. That doesn't happen. Who are our competitors in the college sector? I don't get asked that question as a professor, but in the HR world, I was asked that from some companies that I was in, but I'm always cognizant of these things. Even teaching here, I know who all the colleges are in town and what they offer. So I think it's good to always have an idea of like what's currently going on, because that makes you look more appealing as a candidate, that you're in tune to what's going on. Do you know who the president is of the company? Always important to know. I always stalk people on LinkedIn. I know that sounds creepy, but you know what? I don't like if somebody like asks me for an interview, I'll be like, okay, yeah, sure. And then I go look online to make sure they are who they say they are. Who are they? You know, and things of that nature, just to make sure that, you know, somebody's on the right page. I've had a lot of people over the years that are not legitimate, that are from, you know, different countries, and they'll ask for an interview and I'll do an interview and they're like, okay, we have this great job for you. They're like, can you review all this curriculum? Can you design these courses? And then they never paid. And then I've done all this work. So now I don't do nothing for nobody unless I've researched you and there's a contract. And even if there's a contract, people don't have to pay. People can get out of things, and then there's no international trying to get somebody, and then good luck. So I just do my homework a little better now when somebody wants me to do stuff and they're out of the country. And then sometimes people will have all these conversations and then all of a sudden they disappear and I'm like, what happened? Where did you go? And then I never get an answer. Like, I have no idea what happens there. What'd you like most in your previous role? That's easy, should be easy. What makes you uncomfortable? Be careful about this question. This can get you in a lot of trouble. So be mindful of what you say makes you uncomfortable. I think a good answer for that, like if somebody asks me what makes me feel uncomfortable, and I will say when people are tardy to the workplace, or if people do not shut equipment off in the classroom, these things will make me upset because, you know, it's like you leave all this stuff on at $700 for a bulb. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to waste the school's money or something like that. Something else that somebody would say what makes you uncomfortable when people are on the computer and they're playing video games or they're looking at news or they're on social media and they're supposed to be working, but yet all day that's what they've spent their time doing. So those would be the things that I would answer. But now I could not say anything bad about social media now, because now that would be considered taboo. Even if I said something about people coming in, you know, late to work in the morning, that could be considered taboo as well. So I don't know, that question gets more and more scary as time goes on, because more and more people get upset by everything. What are your hobbies? Be careful about that. What are your hobbies? I fish. That's not offensive to anybody that I know, okay? But like my husband, he is all about military history and Civil War reenactments. And he was not on the side of the North, he was on the side of the South. So that could be incredibly offensive to people. So I've already had it, and he knows what, you know, he knows he has to not talk about that stuff. But he wants to be a history teacher when he gets out of the Navy. And I said, okay, well, good luck with that. That's going to be drastically different by the time you're done. So be careful what you say your hobbies are. I had a student once, and he was from Okeechobee, and he said his big hobby was killing gators. I didn't have a problem with that, but like 3 ladies in the room about fainted when he talked about killing gators and skinning them and doing stuff. And I'm like, you know, I've hunted gator, not a problem. But again, you got to be careful with your hobbies. Where do you get your news from? Is this a tricky question?
Yes.
How is it a tricky question?
A lot of political influence goes each way.
Correct. Also though, right? So if you're a Fox News person, right? Or if you are what's the Democrat one? CNN?
CNN.
Okay, so if you're Fox or CNN, you're Republican or you're Democrat, right? But I listen to NPR, but I also only do NPR for US news. I do Al Jazeera English if I want news from the rest of the world, or I do the BBC, right? So those are my 3 outlets, because I can't stand having crap shoved down my throat from one thing, from another thing. I kind of just want a generic view, but also I get tired of hearing about, you know, for example, Trump. I get tired of hearing about one person constantly. And that's what drives the news cycle. I want to hear, like, what's going on in Borneo? What's going on in, you know, different countries all over the world? I want to know what's going on everywhere all over the world. I don't want to just know about one person who everybody's obsessed with, right? So that's kind of the way I look at it. But you have to be careful, because that's what they're asking you. You know, and don't say you get your news from social media, because that's where there's a generational difference. Oh, I just watch Facebook and everything's true on there. Yeah, no, it is not true. Yeah, so you got to be careful with that. And hardly anybody says TV. I don't think anybody under 25 says, oh, I watch TV. I don't think TV happens for anybody under 25. I own a TV, but I've not had regular TV since 2009. Yeah, I haven't had regular TV service since then. I have either been online or now I have all the apps and I just get all my movies and TV from there. I hate commercials, so I try to live a commercial-free life unless it's a Super Bowl. What is the last book you read? Again, ooh, gotta be careful. I remember when 50 Shades of Grey came out, and I had a couple people that I interviewed, and she was like, 50 Shades of Grey, and she was all happy she read that book, and I was like, well, good for you. I said, yeah, the movie wasn't the same, it was boring. So it was funny that she answered that, but then I kind of had to tell her, I'm like, other people wouldn't appreciate that. They'd be like, oh. And if they were super conservative, they'd be like, oh, strike you down, you're evil, right? So the last book you read, you know, you gotta be really careful how you answer that question. Again, it could be very political. If you read the biography of Trump, or if you read the biography of Nancy Pelosi or somebody else, whatever, that could go one or two ways. People be like, oh, you're one of those, right? And then all of a sudden you don't have a job, so or you don't have an interview anymore. So you know, be careful with that. Like I had a tough time with that because I'm not a reader. I don't read books for pleasure. I hate reading books, so I don't read books. I didn't do books in college. I'm not that person. So I'm not a book reader, but I read journals. And so like when in the college world, nobody will ask me that. They'll just say, what's the last journal you've read? And then when I can answer. Something you disliked about a coworker. Ooh. I could say all kinds of stuff, right? But you got to be careful, right? You got to be careful with that. I had a coworker who would love to eat everybody's leftovers in the fridge. That bothered me to no end. Like, where in the world is that a good thing? No. If you supervise people, what would your direct report say? So that's only if you've been in supervisory. 3 words to describe yourself. Those should also be in your resume. So are you detail oriented? Are you enthusiastic? Are you energetic? Are you confident? Think about 3 words that describe yourself. Here's a good question. What motivates you? So how is this a trick question?
It's going to see, like if you'd ask you if money motivates me, are you in the right position?
Correct.
Or if like advancement, like promotion. So
Right.
you get tripped up there.
Right, so they're looking for intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic is a warm fuzzy. I watch students walk across the stage, warm fuzzy. Do I make a ton of money teaching? No. So money is a strong motivator, yes, but in certain jobs, that shouldn't be the motivation, right? And in certain jobs, it can't be the motivation. You have to be there for the right reasons. How do you handle stress? That's something to think about. That's a question that a lot more people are starting to ask. Disagreements with your boss. You don't really want to say you've had any, but then again, you might want to have a baby one, a little one that you could talk about. What is your biggest failure? Oh, that is a horrible question to ask. A lot of people don't ask that. How do you deal with an angry customer? Ooh, well, in any customer facing role, that could be a student. That could be an actual customer. If you're in law enforcement, that could be half the public. If you're in fire services, it could be anybody who's approached you in a grocery store and asked you why you're buying steak. There could be a lot of areas where that could happen, where it's an angry customer. I used to work telemarketing in college, like 30 years ago. Oh yeah, no, long ago I worked that. In college, I was a telemarketer. It was like one of my first jobs. And I put different accents on, and I found out I was taking people's money. I was taking their retirements and draining their money. And I had no idea that's what the job was. And then once I found out, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. I'm out of here. This is not for me. So it was very interesting to say the least. So had to learn about how to handle customers. And here's the thing, some companies, the customer's always right. So that's kind of a good strategy to go. And the other thing to kind of say is, you know, the word empowerment is really, really big right now in almost every textbook that you'll see. They talk about empowering employees. So the best way to answer that is to say, well, my supervisor empowered me to be able to give the customer their full refund back. I made the customer happy. I asked the customer what they wanted to rectify or remedy the situation, and it was handled, and the customers come back and continue to be a customer. Great way to say you solved the problem, okay? What draws you to this position? It pays a lot, yeah, don't say that. You know, be mindful of, you know, great hours. I always wanted to work here. You know, that's when you kind of talk about what you know about the organization and the position. Why are you looking for a new job? You know, don't get, well, I've been unemployed for like 2 years. My girlfriend right now, she's unemployed. She's been unemployed 2 years. And I'm like, what are you gonna say when somebody asks you that? She's like, I gotta feed my kids. I'm like, please don't say that.
What about retirement? Was that a viable job position change?
I retired from my previous career and now I'm looking to start my new career.
Yeah, okay.
That's how you say that.
Yeah.
So, I'm in a crossroads or a pathway. I've just completed my time in one position and I'm retiring from this position. And now I'm looking forward to starting a new career and a new journey and a new path. And that's how you kind of have to talk about that transition, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What is your dream job? I always tell everybody that the job I'm applying for is the dream job. Always. Like, I'm like, oh, I get to do this, I get to do that. This has been my dream. I love this, blah, 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 blah. Right. I definitely, and that's only when I've been teaching. When I've been doing other jobs, that is not my dream job. Like, nope. When I was a migrant farm worker in Canada, that was not my dream job. I worked in retail for like 5 or 6 years. Those were not my dream jobs. Working in nursing homes, I thought that was the dream job. Nope. Working in mental asylums, when they used to have those, that was never my dream job. It was always to be the boss of everybody there until I got hit and beat up real bad by a client and like lost half my teeth and went, all right, this is no longer a dream job. Then I started doing roofing and construction. That was definitely not my dream job. Nope. And then started teaching private school, public school, and charter school in Florida. Not dream jobs, but saw some promise in those. And then started teaching college and really liked that and was like, okay, this is what I like to do the best. So, can you explain why you're changing career paths? I think I just answered that one for you. Current salary. You don't have to answer, but here's what I do. So say I was making 50,000. I would tell them I'm making 60. So that way, if they come back with 65, you're good. Now, if you work at a state position, they can look up your salary. So you don't get to fudge those numbers. But
The question is common to a lot of employers ask that.
Yeah.
Seems almost inappropriate.
in the US, it's 100%, like, that's just how it is. Now, when I was in China, I didn't, you know, nobody asked me what I was expecting for a salary. They just told me what it was gonna be and that was it. There was like no dialogue and I was like, they were like, is this okay or not? And I was like, yeah, sure, okay. So it was very different. When I was in Cuba, same thing. Maybe it's just communist countries that I've worked in. You know, it was just.
Yeah, Austria is kind of coming, that's good things.
What, where?
Austria.
Austria, yeah. So again, you know, it's very different and like, you don't, there's not so much wiggle room in negotiation. Here, we seem to be very nosy about things where in other countries they don't ask.
Oh, yeah, everything is almost publicly available.
Yes, yes. I can look anybody up online. I had a student, 18, 19 years ago. He looked up property records, found that I was married, found our home because it was listed on the Orange County website in Orlando. He found the drawing of our home. He found out where the master bedroom was. And he showed up at our house. And like, I was like, okay, you crazy person. I had a student in Texas who found my house, showed up at my door with a gun because in Texas, students are allowed to have guns in the classroom. So that was interesting. Oh, he just liked me, but the first one, I don't know. I guess he liked me too. No idea. It's kind of on the crazy side, but But yeah, I mean, things like that happen, and you know, your information's out there. This year I had my first stalker. A girl paid some people to follow me around town, and that was like my first like time being like kind of like shooken a little bit, because she sent the video. She stole all my access to my Facebook, my Instagram.
Why?
Because my current husband was her ex-boyfriend. So yeah, and that was the first time I've ever had girl drama. But it was really, and I called the police and they said there was nothing they could do. Yeah, because she was out of state. She didn't live here. And this girl did this halfway around the world. She did it from Hawaii. She paid somebody here to follow me. I was like, okay, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But then I found out she worked for a law firm and she knew how to get around systems and stuff. So, but she had somebody hack all my accounts, like sent horrible messages to all my friends and family, and really, I think
No matter how much I hate someone, it's too much effort.
you would think so. It's too much effort, but
Yeah.
I mean, she tried to end my career as well. I mean, she wrote the university. I mean, she tried to ruin my career. She tried to ruin my husband's career. It took about both of us a couple months to get out from underneath all that, and I just was like, ugh. So lessons learned, right? But yeah, I had to change my phone number. That's why I was kind of okay changing my name this year. When I got married last month, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll change my name. That's fine. You know, kind of reinvent myself, if you will. Yeah, but things like that happen, and you know, I've never had a coworker that has been upset towards me. My first HR position I ever took, when I got to the place, I was like, why is there no windows in this girl's office? Like, what, how do you work in an office when there's no windows? And they were like, oh, we walled the window in because she got shot and killed because somebody got mad at her. And I was like, I'm taking this job. So, you know, that was a little kind of scary. I had no way out. If somebody came in my office and shut the door, I had no way out. That's why you'll always see a window in every door in a classroom. And just like in our offices, it's to protect us and to make us safe. When people put paper up against those, I'm like, you getting yourself in a, you don't know what's going on behind the paper. So I don't feel like that's very safe. But again, that's just my opinion. Coming from somebody I've been shot at, I've been stabbed, I've been run over by a boat, I've been run over by a car, I've survived 9 car accidents with other people driving, a plane crash with my dad, 14 hurricanes, this last one was a doozy, 1 typhoon in China, 1 tsunami, yeah, I'm still here, like nothing's killed me yet. Cancer 8 times, yeah, I'm still rocking and rolling. So yeah, salary is difficult. That salary is difficult. I always do my homework really well, because if the hiring salary set a range between 40 and 60, then I'm gonna say like 50.
55.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna try to go upper end. I'm not gonna be like 60, bro, because I know they're gonna be like, oh, we're not gonna take her. But I'm not gonna say the bottom either. Even if I'm only making $10 an hour and this is like magical money, I'm just gonna be like, I'm about the middle of the range, you know, because then that way you negotiate, right? They come back and forth, and you know, it's something. What is your ideal work environment? This is a trick question. Okay, I want to work with a whole bunch of people that are like friendly and outgoing and da 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 da, and then all of a sudden you disclose the type of people you want to work with. This can be tricky, right? I had somebody who, when I was working at the roofing company, and he was going to come in and do marketing for us. He's like, I don't want to work with anybody who's an immigrant, and I was like,
Does he understand what business you're in?
it was roofing and construction, and I just looked at him and I was like, everybody here is an immigrant, including the owners. Like, you know, my ex-husband was from England. His dad was from India. I was like, you know, he looked like a big Muslim, but you know, he wasn't. So I told the guy, I said, well, I'm sorry, this isn't gonna work. I was like, there's the door, thank you very much. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, I'm the only white girl that's in this office, okay? Everybody else up in here is either Puerto Rico, Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, England, Guatemala, Mexico, yeah.
I mean, what do you expect in construction?
Oh,
This is absurd.
and that is, and he just kind of thought, he was gonna come into an office setting and that those people were gonna be out in the field and he wouldn't have to be exposed. And I just said, well, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. So I've had people that have had some different expectations when it says ideal working environment. I have been boating this last couple weekends, and one of the people that came with us in the boat said, oh, I know what beach I want to go to. And I was like, okay. And they wanted to go to New Pass. I said, all right, cool, whatever. I've been there a few times. I really like it. It's white sand, it's blue water. I get to go on a boat. I said, but when we went to roll up, I was like, oh, I said, all the people with the Trump flags, can we park down a little ways from them? I don't want to be next to all the Trump people. And my friend looked at me and he's like, I said, I don't care where we park. I said, I would prefer not to park next to those people. I said, but I said, as long as everybody's friendly on the beach, I really don't care. As long as somebody's not forcing rhetoric or screaming at me, I don't care. I said, I think the beach is a safe zone. Like, you might post all those signs and flags on your boat, but maybe, when you're on the beach, you're just on the beach doing your thing. I think there should be some safe places where you can just be a human and be a nice person, and you don't have to push any rhetoric or scream at anybody. But again, you don't see people with Biden signs on their boat. You don't see that either, and I can't stand either old dude, so I'm just biased that way. I don't like either one, but it can be in trouble when you say the ideal work environment. So I always say something that I would want to hear. So I say, and I don't say open door policy, I say open with good communication that will bring me challenging opportunities, colleagues that I can learn from, right? Because those are things I would want to hear if somebody said, like, hey, I want to come work, right? The ideal work environment will allow me opportunities to express, knowledge, to gain knowledge, to, learn more about the industry. So you want to make it not political, and you want to not make it where it fits in, where it's going to upset people. Because right now, everything seems to upset every single person. And it's very, 20 years ago, if you asked this question, I probably would have said, I want to work in a diverse environment and I want to meet people from all over the world, because that's what I used to say when I was in college. Like, I belong to the international club because I just loved all the foreign people. I mean, that's always been me. I left a dairy farm in Minnesota milking cows. That's where I grew up, and everybody was Norwegian. And then I moved to Florida, and it was hola. And there was no hello, guten Tag. There was no German. There was no Norwegians. It was just straight up Spanish, Portuguese, and French Creole when I moved to Florida. And I was like, okay, I'm in the wrong place. What happened? So, it was a drastic change for me, but it was, I've met friends from all over. I have friends from like almost every country in the world. I've had 18,000 students in the last 20 years, and I don't think there's any country I haven't had students in yet. And so when I say an ideal work environment, opportunities to work with people from all over. If you're working for a big company, if you're working for a small company, then opportunities to work with, skilled individuals who can teach me more things than I can grow. That's an answer. That's not threatening. You're not going to get in trouble if you answer it that way. Do you have kids, and are you planning on having children? Holy crap, this is illegal. But guess what? People will ask, oh, do you have any little kids? They'll sit back. They'll seem relaxed when they ask you this question because they want you to answer that out. No, you don't ever say you have kids. Never. You don't ever. I don't care how proud you are. I don't care. You just don't care. You can't tell people you have kids, especially if you're one, because all of a sudden it's who stays home. 90% of the time, females have to stay home. So they know you're going to miss work. Now I can say the same thing for smokers. Smokers, if you look at the statistics, smokers actually lose more sick days than somebody who doesn't smoke. So I'd sit there and argue and go, well, I got kids, but do you have smokers? I mean, there you go. Are you planning to have kids? There's a scary question again, because if you go, yes, I can't wait to have 12 children. They already know that you're gonna be gone all the time. So this question, totally illegal, don't answer it, whatever you do. You might be proud of your kids. In that 2 minutes of tell me about yourself, that is generally where people screw up. I'm married, 4 kids. Yeah, no, you don't even tell people you're married. You just don't say anything, because guess what? There's a whole can of worms that you could open up if you say you're married. Because people are like, oh, you're married. You're like, yeah. And if you say I have a wife, a husband, or you say a partner, all of a sudden that opens up a different can of worms. Because when you say partner, right, that then people make that assumption, right? Or if you're in a same-sex marriage, oh, that's not recognized here. You're not married, right? You got to be really careful about all that stuff. So just don't tell anybody that stuff. It's nobody's business to know what you do at the workplace anyway, what you're doing at home. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's nobody's business. I'm here to do a job for you in the best possible capacity that I can do it in. It's nobody's business otherwise. If I share that, then I share that, right? But you know, in the interview stage, it's nobody's business really. Workplace pet peeves, I always say it's eating other people's lunches in the refrigerator. That's just creepy. Nope. Not anything I recommend anybody doing. Where you see yourself in the first 30, 60, 90 days. That's getting to know the organizational culture. That's one way to say it. Learning my role, learning how I fit, figuring out what I can do to deliver, you know, for the organization. That might be what you might say. When can you start? Easy. What is your availability? What does customer service mean to you? That's pretty straightforward. How long do you expect to work here? Just for a couple weeks or for like a year, and then I'm gonna roll up out of here. Nobody wants to hear that. You know, I'm looking to plant some roots and settle down. That's what I've had to say a few times. But here's the thing, I take contract work. So even though it's been a year, it's all contract jobs. So when I go to apply for a job that's a regular employee job, they seem to be really upset. It either goes one or two ways. They either get really upset with me and they go, oh, you go to a lot of different places. And I'm like, yeah, I've been all over the world. I've taught many different places. Like this is what I do. I like to travel. Some people embrace it and go, we love that you've been everywhere and you've done things and you've met different people and you understand all this stuff. And other people are like, eh. And I'm like, and then I look at the people that I've interviewed that are interviewing me, and they've went to undergrad, graduate, doctoral, all at the same school. They've never left, and they've never worked in the real world. They've never been in it. And I'm like, do I really want to learn from you in the classroom? Probably not. That's the way I looked at it. So, so it gets me in a lot of trouble when I talk about that, but you know, that's kind of the way I look at it. Some of these are, you know, personal things. I'm not going to touch on the traits one. Again, think about positive things to say. Alone or work as a team. I'll give you a great example. I knew somebody a long time ago who said he didn't like people and he didn't care for humans. The job he was applying for was to stock shelves at a grocery store, like in the back. And I was like, okay. He's like, I'm not working with people, so why was it a big deal? I answered the question that way. I said, because at the end of the day, you still have to interface with some humans. I said, if it's a remote work from home and you're doing IT and you have nothing to do with a human being ever in your life, then maybe that would be okay to say. But guess what? 99% of what we do, you have to interface with a human. Maybe this won't be a question down the road in the future when it's just robots. And the question will say, well, you know, what do you interact best with, robots or people? Yeah, maybe that'll be the question. Best job you ever had? I generally don't ask this question. I don't like having to pit somebody against other things. Questions about the job. Why would I want to work for your organization? I like putting people on the spot when I ask that question. But I've come to realize that there's a lot of people who can't answer that question when I'm in the room. So I don't ask it anymore. I've had two people now that when I said, well, why would I wanna come work for you? And the girl was just like, yeah, we're like, really cool to work for. I was like, we're cool to work for, that's all you got, okay. Like, she clearly wasn't gonna answer the question the way I was looking to, like, I really wanted her to sell me on why I would wanna come there, and she just, didn't really look at it that way. So, again, 3 strengths, 3 weaknesses, if you say you are strong with Microsoft Suite, maybe you say, I'm strong with Microsoft Suite as far as Word and PowerPoint and Excel, but Access, I don't really use a whole lot, and that would be a weakness. Because hardly anybody uses it, so it really wouldn't be that bad of a weakness, would it? If you say, I only speak one language, or I was somewhere where somebody had asked, and I said, well, I'm not trilingual, I don't speak Portuguese and Spanish and English, I'm just, English. That's it, English only. So again, be mindful of these things, but these were just some good questions. I put these in here in the course for you, so you guys have them. So you guys can take a look at those, they're helpful. So student introductions, you guys should have logged in already and taken a look at things. There's a PowerPoint here for you guys to look at. Your initial posts. I see a bunch of people logged in, yay. Okay, resume assignment. Okay, so here's the good and the bad about this assignment. Please go to Indeed.com. Indeed.com is global, number 1. Number 2, they've got 1 million cover letter templates for you to use, and they tell you how to write a resume for any job you could ever want. A through Z, they have thousands of jobs listed. So you can look online and get some ideas for some templates. Just don't pay. A lot of people charge for a template, don't pay.
Microsoft Word has resume documents as well.
Okay, good to know. So lots of things in there. Some general guidelines. Don't have typos. Make sure links are going to work if you're going to put them in there. A lot of people now will ask for your LinkedIn page URL. So make sure you throw that in there underneath your email. Don't have an email that says bootylicious6000. I've seen a lot of those emails and they're like, well, I've had it forever. Okay, bootylicious, like I don't care. I can't have an email like that. Make sure it's appropriate. And if it's an underscore, don't have an email with an underscore, because guess what? Once you hit return, then the line drop, you can't see the underscore. So underscores get lost really easy, especially if somebody prints out your resume. Do not put dates on there for like when you graduated high school, even when you graduate college, unless you're currently expecting to grad, then you can put expected grad date. But if you've already received a degree, no longer put that date on there. Something that a lot of people forget to put on their resume is what are your skills and abilities? What software programs are you good at? Are you bilingual? What's your, if it's data entry, I better see a WPM, words per minute, on there. And it needs to be more than 35 words per minute. If you hunt and peck, don't tell anybody ever that you hunt and peck. So again, don't get yourself in trouble on your resume by posting things. And here's the thing, like, do we really need to know that you went to high school? No, you get to a point now, you don't need high school anymore.
No, because you got to, especially if you have a college degree, because you got to have one before you get the other.
Exactly. So there's no need to put high school on there anymore. In community college, you really would, if you did a 2-year degree, you really wouldn't need to put that on there unless it's something like it's an AS degree instead of an AA degree. So I always tell people to be mindful of that, but don't forget, if you know certain software programs, make sure you put that on there. If you're, good with Mac and PC, make sure you put that on there. You got to put that stuff, because some companies are all Mac, some companies are all PC. Some companies, they want to know, do you know PeopleSoft? Do you know Peachtree? you know, there's a ton of different software programs out there that do different things. Put them down because people want to know, you know, what are you relating to? And if you have any certifications or licensure, always good to put. You guys have a quiz to take. You got 2 quizzes, 1 for each chapter.
Now, doctor, I do have one question about the resume.
Sure.
I have been in my current career for almost 23 years.
Okay.
How far back do you go in your employment history? I mean, my last job, I was not with this one. I was 21 years old, just moving down to Florida, waiting for this career to start. So how far
Yeah.
back do you go?
It would just be this current job. You don't, there's nothing, there's no point in putting anything of that other stuff behind there.
Okay.
So most people want a 1-page resume. Like if I print my whole resume out, like the real one that I keep at home, that's like the foundation is what I call it. It's like 7 pages now because I've worked so many jobs. I've published, I've done all this other crap. So I recently, like 2 weeks ago, just redid my resume. I used a template online that I found that I liked. I redid it with my new name. I did a whole new format, something I normally don't ever do. I totally revamped it, made it different. And it's been very positively received in the last couple of weeks. I've had lots of phone calls and stuff. So, so the thing is, like, and it's 1 page. I've got it down to 1 scary page, and I've got, you know, publications on there. I don't even say references available anymore because that's a whole separate page. And I've got all my references listed. I've got 3 professional and 3 personal, and I have that on 1 page, so I can just send that as a whole page. So I would recommend everybody do that. And then the other thing is, you know, knowledge, skills, and a summary. So we used to have an objective at the top of a resume, and now they don't want objectives anymore. They want a brief summary. And that's really like your 2 minutes to tell me about yourself speech. It's what are the best things about you and what you got going for you. So if that makes any sense. So let's get to our chapters here. Oh, there we go. Okay, learning outcomes, all the stuff you're supposed to get out of this. Okay, so what is HR, right? So the process of managing human talent to achieve an organization's objectives, right? Managers play a key role. Okay, good personnel build good business. What if you hire a bunch of really awful people? What happens to your company?
It goes down.
It goes down, right? You have lawsuits. What if you let too many people go and you've gutted the company? We saw this with Twitter recently. Elon Musk got rid of a ton of people at Twitter, and it couldn't function. It's having issues. It's not functioning properly. Too many people crashed it the other night when DeSantis announced he was running. So the thing is, you have to be well staffed. Law enforcement recently has found that they've had cuts to their budgets, and they've gotten rid of people, and now they're supposed to do more with less. In nonprofit, working in, you know, social services and nursing homes and developmental centers, that's all I've ever heard was do more with less every single year. Hey, how come we haven't had a pay raise in 6 years? Do more with less. And I'm like, okay, but the CEO is driving a Mercedes Benz and the rest of us are sucking on rocks over here. Like, what's up with that? You know, it's hard to make that argument, but, you know, it is Florida. The pay here is not, you know, super fabulous. But again, we have no state income tax, so I have to say thank you for that. So understanding one's rights and responsibilities as an employee. Again, that's more self-help, right? When you get hired, they tell you to click on this link and they say, go read the employee manual. Nobody gives you an employee manual anymore. Nobody sits you down and takes a class with you for a whole week and goes, I want you to read the book and we're gonna take a pop quiz on the employee manual. People don't do that anymore. I remember the days where I used to do that and I had to do that. I had to study the whole employee manual and I had to come in and take a quiz. Those days are gone, gone, gone.
Especially when you got the updates at an employee manual, you had to go back to the pages, take them out, put the new ones in.
Well, that and now they just send out an email and go, please hit reply that you've read the new policy change. And then all of a sudden, bam, everybody's been notified and educated on it.
Yeah, I remember going through my books and updating the new ones.
Mm. Yep, I had to do that, and we called them addendums, and you just stuck the addendums in the back, because that's, you know, how you had to do it. Human capital, important word. Knowledge, skills, and capabilities of individuals that have economic value to the organization. So what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a flood of people leave the workforce as they have decided to retire since COVID. A lot of people have decided to leave. You've got an aging population of people that are heading out the door. Other things that you got going on is people are like, yeah, I'm just not interested in working anymore. I'm good. I'm not going to work a full-time job anymore. And they're leaving the workforce in big numbers. And when people leave the company that have been at the company for a while, like yourself over there, all that knowledge and skill and everything else of 23 years that he has, that's going to leave the company. The company is going to have a brain drain because he's leaving. Because they got something that somebody they've invested thousands, millions of dollars in of 23 years of knowledge of the organization. And when he leaves, all that's gone. Unless you have some really good succession planning and you're sharing all this knowledge with somebody before you leave.
I do. I used to train.
Okay, all right, good. So you've got somebody that you're sharing all this knowledge with, and that when you leave, they will have all this knowledge.
Yeah, I used to train a lot of the new guys, so I'm seeing them succeed in the career that I'm in right now. So it's pretty nice to see it.
Okay, it doesn't happen very often. I will tell you that. A lot of times when people leave an organization, there's kind of like a scramble of, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? This person has been here for so long. And if that person gives you a 2-week notice, you're in trouble, because now you don't have the time to sit there, right? I've seen it where we've had somebody very valuable leave, and they gave us a heads up. They said about a month out, they said, hey, look, I'm leaving. And so we said, would you stay on as a consultant and help the new person along for like 6 months? And they were like, sure, absolutely. Other times people are like, heck no, I'm done with you. I'm out of here. I don't care if I ever see you again. And we were like, okay. And that was that. So again, you know, good, bad, ugly. So if we look at the generations that are in the workforce right now, just in the US, the silent generation born from 28 to 1945, they're, you know, in their mid to late 70s at this point. Yep, those people are still working. There's a lady who's a park ranger. She's 104. That lady's still rocking and rolling. I tell people in other countries that in America you can work till you're dead, or like, and senators and Congress people work until they're dead, literally. And they're like, what? In other countries, there's a mandatory retirement of age 60 in a lot of other countries, where you're done at 60, you can't work past that. In China, it's 50 if you're a woman, 60 if you're a man. In the Middle East, a lot of those countries, it's 60. You have to get special permission to work past that. My girlfriend's dad, he's a lawyer over there, and you know, that's the requirement. But because he was a lawyer for the biggest oil company there was, yeah, they automatically granted him permission. And another
How were the social safety nets over there for that though?
What do you mean? You mean social programs, like how much you paid in and what you get?
Yeah, I mean, if you're forced out at 60, are the social, you know, safety nets there to support them?
Well, it depends on how you view that. So if I'll go to the conservative, if I do the conservative route with that mindset, I'll say, well, you should have invested and you should have things in place and you shouldn't rely on that as anything. If I go the opposite side of that coin and say, okay, you know, we've got some sort of net, you're not gonna live like a king, but you're gonna kind of be okay. So there's two sides of that coin. I would say in certain countries that I've been to, it's okay. Like living in China as retiring in China, every woman that I know that's retired over there, they hustle and do other things like without pay on the books, in order to keep working. The other thing is they don't have daycare over there. So when your kids pop out a baby, you go live with your kids and you raise them, you take your daycare for those kids. So again, everybody pops out babies. The old days, you used to pop out babies from 18 to 25. So that meant your parents were at 50, right when retirement was. Well, the new problem is all the girls in the world over there that are still alive that they didn't murder for the last 51 years. Because now you can have 3 kids versus 1, and it can be a girl. Now you got all these girls going to college, and they're like, I want to buy purses and go shopping, and I'm not having no babies. And they want to go do, and so now they're having babies at 30 and 35, and some of them aren't having babies. If you're not married by 30, you're considered a hag. And they have horrible names for you in China if you're not married by 30. I was like, woof. So very different over there. But like, say you're a government employee in China and you retire at 60, and you're a dude. I met a couple of those in the nail salon. They have retirement homes, like just for the government employees. Kind of like how the VA has a nursing home out in Napa Valley. I saw the nursing home out in Napa this year. I was like, dang, let me be in the VA going to the nursing home in Napa. I just like crawled out of my nursing home and I went to pick some grapes and I came back, right? So that was pretty cool. But they're all taken care of really well if you worked for the government in China or you're retired military. You get your own military nursing home. And they have like a nice retirement. Those people don't work, they enjoy things, but they're also traveling. And their level of income has increased over there so much because we're over there having everything built, right? That their whole income level has gone up. Everybody has raised. And so what has happened because of that is that they have a higher standard of living now than they've ever had. And so but they don't have as many people working now. So China's about to take a pooping by 2050 because they have more old people than they do young people working. And they've lied about these numbers, and now the new reports are coming out. It's not looking good. I can't say we're in any better shape. I mean, people that are 76 and older, people that are 57 to 75, the baby boomers, like where my dad's at. You know, those are all the people. Some of them are still working, but COVID drove a lot of people out of the workforce. Like a ton of people left the workforce. Even in nursing, I saw a lot of my friends in nursing said, "Oop, I'm done." I'm like, dude, you're only 52. That's okay. I'm done. You know, so I saw a lot of people, I saw a lot of teachers leave because I knew a lot of teachers who worked in the school system here in Florida, and a lot of people died. I had a lot of family members in different places who died, and I had a lot of students who died during COVID because I was up in South Carolina teaching. So I saw a lot of people retire and leave the workplace because they were just like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. Since moving here last August, right before the hurricane, I think every person that I've met in an Uber or a Lyft has not been from here. They've been from Cuba, or they've been from Haiti, or they've been from somewhere else. And I'm like, Uber game is strong. Okay, I got it. So I'm, you know, like we're, you know, 20 years ago, this was not such a haven for people from all over. And now I kind of look at it as every time I come to class, I have people from all over, and it's always so nice. And like, you know, I would say that there's a lot of positive things that come from when you have people from all over who get to come and share knowledge and views and things like that. It would just be nice if that spread to our politics and we would look at the positive things that, you know, certain countries are doing and go, why can't we mimic that? That would be awesome, right? You know, because Norway, Sweden, Iceland, they got some of the happiest people in the world, man. Like, what are they doing right over there, right? But again, you know, I look at taxes, I look at quality of life, I look at pay. Could I freeze the death most of the year? I already did that once, not doing it again, not going back to cold, right? So I look at all those factors, look at how happy people are, look at healthcare, right? That's the other thing. Most Americans, if they can't afford healthcare here, they pack up and go to another country. They go down to Colombia and get all kinds of body parts put in. Or they'll go to Costa Rica. Costa Rica actually on their website has Costa Rica medical vacations, where you just go to Costa Rica and it's American doctors down there going, hola, and you're getting all kinds of stuff done. You're like, wow, this is fantastic. Yay for me. When I was in China, my friend that's coming next week, that's coming from Cambodia, he worked with me in China for a few years, and he got his whole face done before he left for $400. He's like, I got a facelift. I was like, okay. Like, I wasn't about to go under the knife in China. I went to the emergency room twice there, and it was $37 each time, and I was like, that's awesome. But I've also been in the emergency room in the US, and that cost me $28,000. So I'm not trying to ride that train again. Gen X, born from 65 to 80. That's my people.
I'm with you.
So that's my people. I'm in that group. My husband and my brother are in that millennial group, that 25 to 40 group. And that's the group everybody seems to complain about, but those people are complaining about the post-millennial group. The people that are 16 to 24, that are age eligible to work. And so I love how each group is complaining about the next group, but each group has different values. Each group communicates differently. Each group wants different things, but I'm pretty sure everybody's in the same agreement. Like, you want to work for a good organization that gives a crap about you, that cares about you, and you want a fair wage, you want a decent paycheck. I think everybody wants healthcare benefits, everybody wants work-life balance. I think that's general across everywhere. Now, I grew up as a latchkey kid. Both my parents worked. I grew up on a farm, and then my mom decided to go back to work when I was like 10. And then both my parents decided to go to college the exact same time I was in college. And I went to college when I was in high school. So I was in college with these two people. And my dad was getting his aviation degree, and my mom was getting her bachelor's in social work. And then I went to homecoming with my mom, and the opening act was Guns N' Roses and Black Crowes. And yeah, not a lot of people can say they went to homecoming and went to college parties with their mom, but I did, because she was cool like that. But yeah, lots of different changes between all these different groups. Now, here's the one thing I will say, you look at the millennials, this group of people got marketed to more than anybody else, because marketing kind of was born in the 80s as was HR, okay? When you look at post-millennials, these folks don't know 9/11, some of them. They have no idea what happened that day. A lot of them don't know what a rotary phone is. If I say hashtag, they know what that is, but they don't know what the pound sign is on the phone. So when you call into a bank and it says press pound, they don't know. So there's certain things that different generations don't know because of all the different things that have drastically changed in between these, these notions of things, right? And so you'll notice the millennial picture. She's not pictured with somebody. Like in the one picture thing, they'll put a millennial alone. They won't put a millennial with somebody in the picture, because they won't say that you're married, right? But if you look at pictures where they'll show you baby boomers and the silent generation, they'll have a picture and it'll be two old people together, right? So even the picturing of what they put out there, how they describe these different groups of people are drastically different. So let's look at all the different things that are going on. Changes in the marketplace and the economy, right? What's going on with globalization? If you open up a business today, you could be global tomorrow, as long as you could ship your product and get enough of it anywhere you want, right? I'll give you an example of globalization. 5 years ago, was anybody drinking boba tea? Were you drinking tapioca in your tea? 5 years ago? No, most people in the US had no clue what that was, right?
Really?
Oh yeah, no, that's
I heard that was like I don't know, maybe when I was in high school, I'm not sure, like
No.
more than 10 years ago.
Right.
When they started,
Right.
they were like big thing for a year or so, and then they all closed.
Oh, well, about 3 to 4 years here is when the explosion of boba tea kind of like took off, right? Now, when I was in China, I had to learn how to say it in Mandarin. I did not want balls, whatever those things were, in my tea because I didn't want it. I like oolong tea, I like it plain, I like green tea, and I like sweet Thai tea. Those are my 3 teas, okay? I do not want tapioca balls in my tea, right? But everywhere in China, that's just a staple, right? You get to California, California's been doing it for a long time because they have a stronger Asian community. And that's why it's more popular. Now I saw a couple places here in town that have it. So now it seems to be all the biggest craze here, right? Amazon has those boxes at Lowe's. It's a locker. You can go into Lowe's and get your stuff from Amazon. That concept started like 10 years ago in China. Nothing new, right? So in Europe, everybody uses AliExpress. Okay, AliExpress is really Alibaba, which is the same as Taobao, which is what is the largest shopping
But I
platform.
think AliExpress is more for like private people, and Alibaba is more like wholesale, right? I think they only sell like.
Alibaba owns AliExpress and Alibaba owns Tencent. They own everything in China. And they got broken up this year into 6 different companies because the Chinese government said you got too big. Alibaba is more of the corporate side, but they had to make an English version of Taobao because Taobao is kind of like Amazon in the US. So AliExpress is actually the English version of Taobao, which is how everybody shops. Because I have AliExpress and I'll order certain things off of there that I can only get if you're in Europe, right? Because Amazon doesn't have it, right? And then like when I was in China, I would have students go get stuff for me on Taobao so I could get stuff. And then I'd be like, can you order this? And they're like, it'll take a month because I would order peanut butter. Peanut butter is not a thing outside of the US and very many countries.
That's correct.
And I needed peanut butter to get through dry bread in China. It was tough for me. So I would have the students order me a jar of Skippy peanut butter. And then like on my first trip, and then my second trip, I found the little packables and I could pack the peanut butter and send it to myself. So, you make do with what you got, right? I interviewed for a school in Switzerland a couple of years ago. And right as the pandemic was starting, I had already interviewed and I was going to pack up and go. And then the pandemic hit. Thankfully, I didn't leave the country. I just stayed put. And they were, I was looking at the bus pass. It was going to be like $400 for a bus pass and, all these crazy expenses. But then I was like, you know what? There's a lot of chocolate there. I think I'll be okay. Because that was like the one country I was like, well, Nestle's from there. I'll have chocolate for days. That's one thing I don't have to import, right? But, you have to look at certain things like, what are things that you can't live without? What are things that you can? My buddy that's coming home from Cambodia, his first request is, can we go to Taco Bell? He wants some tacos. Because in Asian countries, they don't do tacos. That's like taboo to pick up something with your hand and eat it. So they don't do tacos. So tacos are just foreign to them. Like KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Starbucks, Pizza Hut, Outback, those companies have made it in China. And, they're all excited about those over there, but then they don't serve the same thing. So
They cater to the demographics.
They do. I mean, in McDonald's in Mexico serves tacos. They also serve beer, right? KFC, you can drink beer in different countries. So it just depends on where you are, what they're serving, things of that nature. It's always interesting, but a lot of companies have gone global. And the sad thing is, if you look at BMW, you look at Mercedes, 31 to 37% of what they totally make as a company comes out of the Chinese market. Starbucks, KFC, some of their biggest money comes from over there because it's such a huge population. If more people figured out how to get into India and be able to take less money for something, that's the next big market. And then Nigeria will be the one after that. Technology, like I said, everything's going to AI. AI in the terms of ChatGPT, AI in the terms of Watson, AI in the terms of Sophia. Does everybody know who Watson and Sophia are?
Watson's IBM's, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's IBM's supercomputer. So a lot of companies are renting IBM's supercomputer, Watson, because Watson can do, like, say you have cancer, Watson can search the whole entire global universe and find out every research study that's going on right now about your case of cancer and figure out the best way to treat you. So it's really great to have that much technology at your fingertips. Sophia, you guys can look at a YouTube video of this crazy girl. She was given citizenship in Saudi Arabia. She was custom built. She is a robot that a guy built. And she's got 6,000 micro expressions to the human face down. They gave her a body now and citizenship. She's already said she wants to terminate all of us. So she's already become the Terminator. And so every robot that gets created is always female. Because that's what everybody, they all think that. I'm like, look, Terminator was a dude, but all these females, they're definitely going to be, you know, Terminator for us. They're coming for us, right? And as AI evolves, it's becoming self-aware. So I'll give you an example. So the computer systems that they've created are starting to learn, and they're learning on their own. And anybody who sits here and tells you that this is not scary, that we shouldn't be concerned, I got news for you. That's not. It's learning on its own. It doesn't take long to read everything. So there was a recent study where somebody fed 100 years of books, romantic literature, to an AI. Had it read all the books. It took it like 6 hours. It read all the books. Okay. And then they pulled the data from it, and it basically described who the writers were, who the people were, all the love stories, and it showed you all the biases in writing and how it all kind of goes along, and who's written what, how it's written, the dynamics written, and it showed you all the biases, and it could spit it out like that. They're using AI today. Real estate companies are using AI today. They will go in and pull all the data from a building. They can pull the data from a building, and they can now ask the building, where are you the most efficient and where are you not efficient? So now you can ask the building, well, do you get too much sun on this side and you have to use more AC over here? We'll put 3M film up and now the sun won't come in. You can ask a building now for its own data and say, how could you be more efficient as a building? And nobody thinks that this stuff's coming.
That's why we're having congressional hearings right now about it. And I follow Stephen Hawking, and he had a lot to say about AI and how petrified he was of it.
Yes, yes. Yes, he definitely did. He had some things to say, but you know, we didn't do enough recording of him, so we.
No, he was awesome.
Yes. Cost containment, leveraging employee differences. So these are all things that can make you competitive. Cost containment is going to be the one that higher ups are going to say, I don't want to spend money on this. How do we cut costs? Well, like I said earlier, I lost a job a while ago because they hired somebody else to do my job, and they only had to pay him $600 a month versus my salary. So cost containment. If I can get rid of a human being, right? Humans get sick. Humans need vacation time. Humans need days off. Humans have babies and they take time off of work. What does a robot need? Nothing. Maybe I throw an SD card in you and I upload you, and now you got some more skills, right? That's what Elon Musk is working on. He's working on a program where you can just SD yourself and you can give yourself some new skills. He's working his data link system. That's why he bought Twitter, because he can connect data link to Twitter and it'll learn, because that's actual human interactions. That's human conversations. That's a great.
Plants it right in your brain.
Yep. So, hey, if I could take an SD card and put like 6 languages into this thing, I absolutely would.
It's the matrix.
Yes, it is, absolutely. I don't want that big of a hole in the back of my brain, but my head, but maybe, maybe. So what is it that HR does? We plan, we recruit people, we have to staff the organization. We also have to predict who's leaving, who's coming, who's going, when there should be openings. We have to look at job design, that's your job description, say what you do, what you don't do. And every year that changes, right? Because every part of a job becomes more automated or AI does it. So you don't do that job anymore, but now I'm going to give you something else to do. Maybe I merge positions. So in healthcare administration, I used to have students that would do X-ray technician, they did medical assisting, and then they did medical billing and coding. And pretty soon that got merged to the X-ray tech was also the MA, the medical assistant. Those two people did the same thing. And then after that, they had something called the doctor's kiosk. So now it's just a machine in the front of the room. You go in, you scan your healthcare card, you check in, you put your arm in the cuff, it takes your blood pressure, you stick your finger out, it takes your blood. It's checked you in, it's checked all your vitals, and now you sit down and now two people's jobs went out the door. So
They got computers on carts now that actually are starting to go in the patient's room.
yeah, I was at 2 doctor's visits yesterday. And yep, it's coming. It's coming. So training and development, something we do less as human beings, and now it's PowerPoints. We send you a video, you do something online, come back, you got your certification. Less and less is it warm, fuzzy human interactions when it comes to training and development. Appraisals. This is one area where I probably argue with people the most. I don't like a 1-year annual appraisal. Oh, you screwed up last February, that one day, but now I'm interviewing you in December, right? I think it should be more of, I meet with my supervisor once a week and we kind of touch base on what's going on and what I need help with, or is there anything you need to let me know, or am I doing okay? I think if you as a supervisor are more in touch with your team and you let people know when they make a mistake right away so they can correct it and they can learn right away from it, rather than, oh, that one time 8 months ago you screwed up. A year performance appraisal does nothing good for anybody. Nothing. At that point, you're just going, yeah, I didn't hear about you all year. You must be doing okay. Awesome. That's not the right approach. Communication. Believe it or not, even though we're more connected than we've ever been before, we communicate less.
Mhm.
So again, people are like, oh my gosh, like, and there's a difference between those generations that we talked about, where some people are chatting Kathy on the telephone, other people you can't get them to talk on the phone. Then you got people who just want to text their whole life. You got other people who are like, I need a physical human being to learn. I've got other students I've never seen in my entire life. And I worked for a woman I've never met to this day. Like, never met her. I worked for her for 2 years doing behavioral therapy. Never met this lady. Saw her on the cover of magazine. She got famous for a while. I was like, I never met her. I was like, okay. Like, I communicated with her like once a year. So compensation has drastically changed. And since COVID, people have had to finally realize that keeping wages at $7.50 an hour or $4.25 an hour for years and years and years and years of wage suppression. Most people in my age bracket go, oh my gosh, you want $15 an hour to work somewhere? Because our whole entire growing up in our life, the wage has been the same. And we can remember when we thought $15 an hour was big money. But if you look at healthcare, for example, healthcare has gone up huge amounts of money. Look at education. Since 1976, tuition has raised 400% in this country. 400%. Wages haven't. If wages would have kept up with the cost of living, COLA, in the United States, wages would be at $19.10 an hour right now. Why have we flourished? Why have so many businesses done so well? Because we've suppressed wages for so long. Now, people whose wages haven't been suppressed, those people in government, the senators and your Congress people, they've gotten a raise every single year.
Because
They
they get a vote for it on their own.
They vote to give themselves a raise every single year. So
Yeah, they do.
if you want to look at compensation from that view, when I was getting ready in 2016 to leave the United States, I had an offer to go to Kentucky, or I had an offer to go to South Korea. I hadn't been to South Korea, wasn't sure about going over there. I was like, I'm kind of tall. If that little guy in North Korea pushes a button, I'm gonna be the first person dead, right? So I was kind of concerned about these things. I was concerned about living in Korea, being freezing to death, cold, eating dog, anything else that I had read that I thought was not a good time. But then they told me what the salary was, and I was like, holy crap, I can't do it. I'm sorry, right? So I took the job in Kentucky, not realizing I was moving to the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, and there was no teeth and pills and drugs, and I was like, woo, this was not for me either. I was in a town of 1,000 people. It was just not for me, right? But then fast forward a couple years, and then when I got to China, and I looked at my salary annually in China versus what it was in South Korea, and it was the same. But then I realized it was tax-free if you live outside the United States for more than 11 months, I don't have to pay tax. And then I realized, like, you know, that money in China, woo, I was like a millionaire there. I was like, go to dinner. I was like, I spent $2 today, woo, and I had 3 meals. It was fantastic. Starbucks coffee though was still $8 a pop. That wasn't any cheaper. And if I wanted to buy anything that was American, like a brand, holy crap, they had to charge. They paid 30% more on something if it was a US brand or some fancy clothier brand or something like that. So that was interesting. But yes, compensation definitely needs to be a conversation. Now, here's an example I'll give you. Is anybody in here like Costco?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. So Costco has always paid its people a really good wage. They have the highest retention in the retail industry because they pay their people extremely well, and part-time people get health insurance and benefits. So something to think about, when you pay your people well and you give them benefits, they don't have to leave. The average US company spends $8,000 or more for every new person they have to bring into a business, but through training, background checks, all this other crap that goes with advertising and right? They save all that money on the back end because they put it in the front end and they pay people a good salary so people don't leave. So depending on what you want to do, if you pay people really bad, look at Walmart. I'll pick on Walmart because I hate Walmart. Okay, Walmart uses labor of the Chinese prison camps. Okay, Walmart pays its people like crap. Do they have lots of turnover? Ooh, terribly. Right? I rarely go to Walmart. Is it a good customer service experience? I don't get it. Hi, how you doing? Unless it's some old person who's already retired working at the front door, and they're just happy and nice and friendly to see humans, and they're not at medical appointments. But you also don't have them checking people out on the cashier either, a lot of the times. Now the Bonita Springs Estero one, that's nothing but old people and everybody's super friendly, and I like that one. So I try to go there as much as possible. I try to stay away from the one over here. Again, compensation, you gotta pay people. People are having to work longer. People can't go to retirement as early as they once did. Because there's just, everything costs too much money. I mean, you can have one medical setback and all of a sudden you're filing bankruptcy. 1 out of every 3 people that file bankruptcy due to a medical setback. We talk about benefits. Benefits are expanding, believe it or not. Companies are trying to figure out new ways. They have dog and pet insurance now. Other benefits include adult daycare for your parents. So again, a few new benefits to be added. And labor relations. We're not a union-friendly state here, so not a lot of labor unions in the state of Florida. There was a couple attempts a few years ago for adjunct faculty to try to join unions, and that got stopped out, so.
Yeah, so Florida's a right to work state, that kind of eliminated all that.
It did. More and more states are going that route because they just don't like labor union stuff. But If you look at the reason why we have a 40-hour work week, why you get paid, why you get some benefits, all that stuff came about due to unions pushing back in the 1800s, 1900s. And the UK looked at our laws for the 40-hour work week and said, okay, we'll adopt those. And in most places all over the world, the 40-hour work week has kind of been the thing. Certain countries, it's 50-hour work week. But, you know, a lot of countries have adopted the 40-hour work week. You know, some countries pay you once a month. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks. In the US, some places pay you once a month, and then in other places it's every 2 weeks. Or I get paid once a week. It's kind of weird depending on what kind of job I have and who I'm getting paid with and stuff like that. Adjuncting jobs pay you, a lot of people went to 1099, and it means you work for 4 months and then you get a paycheck. So you don't get paid for 4 months. So I've done a lot of that contracting work. You got to have other things going on in order to eat. So I've definitely done that. I've been a labor union member. Found out years after my mom died that she was a Teamster, and my mom actually went to companies and put unions in place. She was one of those people. Had no idea. But when I taught in public school system in the state of Florida, I was a union member then. So employee concerns, job security. Here's the thing. A lot of companies are going away from having full-time people. If I can get you to work 30 hours a week, I don't have to pay any benefits to you. That makes my life much easier as an employer. And I don't care if you don't have benefits. How's that sound? So some companies are going that path. Nursing, I can remember nursing started doing that like, 15 years ago. They started doing nurses and they just said, 30-hour work week. And you'd see nurses have to work at 2 different places in order, you know, to make money. And then how do you get health insurance? How do you get coverage, right? We don't like to give anybody health insurance benefits in this country unless you work full-time. We just don't like to do it unless you work full-time. If you don't have a job, you're not having health benefits. It's not happening for you. And you could work somewhere and they give you health benefits, and it's the crappiest health benefits you've ever seen in your life. I worked for a company doing substance abuse. I was a grant writer and a substance abuse person. Our insurance deductible was $15,000. I had to pay $15,000 before it covered anything. I was like, what's the purpose of it? I might as well just pay on my own. So, but they were like, we offer help. Okay, but it's garbage. I don't want it. Just like the health insurance I had to buy when I went to China. I paid $400. I got there and they're like, oh, no work here. I was like, what? I had to pay for this. They're like, that don't work here. I was like, and I was freaking out. I had to go to the emergency room. And then it was like $36. And I was like, ha, okay, no problem. I got this. This is okay. I'll pay the bill, no problem. Right. So healthcare issues is another reason that people are very concerned. A lot of times somebody won't leave a job if they have a health issue because they know it's covered. There's supposed to be a law that says, you know, they won't exclude you from insurance if you have a pre-existing condition. I have not found that to be true. And I can honestly say that because I've had cancer 8 times, and Aflac won't give me any kind of help because I have to be 5 years free and clear of any kind of cancer. They're just like, no. And then I worked as an independent person when I've tried to buy healthcare on the marketplace. Guess how much the healthcare marketplace insurance was for me a month? Take a guess. Take a stab.
About $3,000.
It was $1,100 a month for health insurance for me.
What is, like, I mean, what's like the average amount of money people spend for health insurance here?
Okay.
What was
So
the question, doctor?
she asked what the normal price of health insurance would be. So
That's a huge gamut because it all depends on, my job is actually pretty well, so I can't complain too much about mine. But
well, you work for a government agency and you work for a big enough agency where if you have a lot of people somewhere, it makes the premium what I pay monthly small. So here's
we actually open up our own clinic and hire our own staff.
Okay, spoiled person. Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, so when an employer looks at having health insurance for its employees, okay? They usually, what they do is they go out to 3 different places and they make a bid and say, you know what, I have 100 employees. I'm relatively small, but I want to make sure my 100 employees have health insurance. Okay, so companies, okay, so if you're a single person or if you're, you know, a family, okay. So as a single person, I pay $206 a month out of my paycheck, okay? And a family of 4, we'll just call it $450,
It's
okay?
kind of like the HMOs and what's the other one, the primary health organizations and I can't remember the terminology on them.
Yeah, PPO and HMO. So, so here's the thing. So I pay this monthly, and if I had a family, I pay this monthly, okay? What you don't see is that the company is paying a huge portion of it for me. So a company is probably paying 500 of this. So this is probably about 700 a month. And with this one, they're probably paying $800 a month, okay? So when a company says, you know, we cover, you know, a percentage of, you know, you're only paying $206 a month, but yet they're paying the other 500. How you find out how bad it is, right? So you get spoiled paying 200 a month. All of a sudden now I had to pay 1,100 a month. I was like, I don't got it. It ain't happening.
But this is kind of what the average company would offer a full-time employee.
Correct. And it depends on the size of the company.
Yeah.
And it also depends on if it is health maintenance or if it's PPO. So these are the 2 kinds of insurances that we have. One, you get to pick your doctor, any doctor you want to go to. The other one, it's a directory and it's a list of who they've contracted with. So here's the other thing. So this is what you pay monthly, right? But then you have a deductible. So my deductible for my current plan is $2,000. So after I have spent $2,000 of my own money, every time I go in, I pay for crap. Anything after that, now they will pay the bill, okay? So I just paid it because I had 7 stitches across my face here because I had cancer again. So I just paid this $2,000. I was like, whoop, there you go. So now if anything happens to me the rest of the year, I don't have to pay. So I'm like, please, right? So I pay that. Now, here's the thing. A lot of companies will say our deductible is $5,000. It makes this a monthly amount less.
Yeah.
But now you
yeah.
gotta poop out $5,000. So
A
again,
lot of companies will actually only cover 70% even after. your
Right,
deductible.
right. So ours here covers only 80% of the bill now, even though I've paid the $2,000, they'll only cover 80%. So I'll give you an example. So when I lived in Key West and we had to airlift somebody to Miami, that bill was $80,000 that this kid had to pay. He got run over on a scooter. Okay, he was from Poland. I was like, dude, you are never going to pay that bill. And he's like, I will work the rest of my life to pay that bill, right? But he had to pay ADG because he had no health insurance. So this is the biggest issue in this country, other than wages right now, is
But
this.
honestly, I mean, for the reputation America has for like cost for health and everything.
Right.
You work full time, you have to put $200. I mean, in Austria, we have healthcare, but I want good healthcare.
Right.
The 400
Right.
So.
Yeah, so again, there's pros and cons, right? But here's the other thing too. Depending on if you need prescriptions, because sometimes your health insurance won't cover prescriptions. That's a totally different thing, right? But then you also have to have dental insurance, vision insurance, right? So and then there's disability. You lose a finger or something, whatever, right? So you've got to pay for all of these on top of this, right? So then you're spending about $300 a month. Now this is a good rate. I've been at companies where I've had to pay that on my own, and I'm like, okay, we're kind of getting up there, right? And here's the number one thing I can tell anybody at a company: the best way to bring this money down from the insurance company is to make sure not a single person in your company smokes. Nobody smokes cigarettes, and you are a smoke-free, 100% all employees smoke-free. You get a better rate on insurance. The other thing is if you implement a 1 hour, hour and a half lunch break where everybody gets access to work out, you have workout programs, your rate goes down again, right? Excuse me, because if you can say, my employees are healthy, they're not smoking, oh my gosh, we'll drop your rates, because now you're less likely to have people with heart attacks, you're less likely to have all these different issues and have to pay all this money. So that's some of those things, but health insurance and wages are probably they're the two biggest expenses that a company has. I mean, wages for an employee and health and insurance is what kills companies, it really is. But you treat people, if you don't make the workplace safe, you're gonna have accidents. If you have accidents, you're gonna have to pay through the nose. So again, it just comes back to being a good employer, right? If you have good wages and you're able to get a good insurance plan, you're not gonna have tons of turnover. You're just not, it's not gonna happen. So things to, kind of look at when we look at healthcare, age and generational work issues, we kind of talked about that already. A lot of people are not prepared for retirement. A lot of people don't know, with the cost going up every single year, how are they going to pay for things? I look at the people who didn't have insurance on all their trailers in the trailer park here when the hurricane hit. Woo! A lot of people lost them homes and they weren't insured. Now I drove by the one trailer park and there's just concrete pads where they used to be. They're not there anymore. So I don't know where those people are. I don't know where they went. I have no idea. Retirement. Again, a lot of people are concerned. You've got some people who want to get rid of Social Security. If they get rid of that, then all the money that's been paid in goes away. There's a lot of people that want that to go away. They don't want people to have that system. So if you support that or if you're against that or whatever, here's my thing. I've paid all this money in. If you want to end the program, fine. I want my money back, right? I know that's not going to happen. But again, when the program started in 1935, we had 6 people working for every 1 person retiring. Now we got like 12 people retiring for 1 person working. So it's not working out so hot. Again, we're not the only country facing these issues that has more working people retiring than we're just not. China's dealing with this. Japan's been dealing with this for 10 years. It is what it is. Gender issues, not going to touch that topic. Educational levels, that's a hot topic right now because a bunch of companies came out and said, you don't need a degree. We'll just kind of teach you and train you and kind of figure things out, right? We're the only country in the world that's saying don't get an education. Everybody else in the world still values education and is still telling people go to school.
I have a point on that one.
Yes.
It all depends on what your career field is going to be. If you don't, I believe a college education is very important depending on what degree, field you go into, but you don't need it if you go to a trade school. So there is difference.
Well, you're still saying school. I'm saying that 400
okay.
companies came out and said, you don't need nothing.
No.
Yeah, my thing is this, you get done with high school, either go to college, go to trade school, join the military, do something, right? Or go volunteer for 2 years and get some free education and come back. I don't know, do something. You out hustling and selling drugs and robbing people and doing that. No, I'm sorry, I didn't work this hard for that. So, have some idea of the world, have some idea of who you are and what you want to do. Have a purpose. When you're robbing and stealing and committing crime, I mean, is that your purpose in life? Do you feel driven every day to wake up and steal? I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like that we have I don't know, maybe a bunch of kids getting in nature and gender studies or diversity or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I don't see those programs. Right now, we're in the swing is going this way. The swing is going to swing the other way. That's the pendulum kind of swings in this country when it comes to politics and whatever. Right now, it has swung really far that way. Okay, and it's gonna come back around, it's probably this one this way, and so you're already seeing a tightening of things in Florida. You're seeing a tightening of things in Texas. So Texas and Florida passed laws where if you're from 6 certain countries, you can't buy land anymore, right? We're tightening up how we talk about gender things and Betty, belonging, equity, diversity, inclusion. There's those kinds of conversations. Then you got people going the other way. California is looking at paying $1 million to every African-American, AKA Black person, you know, anybody who proves they were enslaved. They won't have enough money. They're gonna run out of money. So you've got all these different people going in different directions. We're being pulled in different directions. We're being divided. We saw during COVID, we are not a united country. We are not the United States. If anybody saw that, it was definitely China looked at us and went, you're really not united. It made us look weak as a nation. And it makes me sad because I saw how united we became for 9/11 when we felt like we were being attacked. And you saw a lot of people come together, and that unity just isn't there. We've become very divided in probably the last decade, and I don't think we're coming together anytime soon. So I would say that when it comes to gender issues, people going to school, we're in a period right now where we're dumbing things down, and there's going to be some lost souls in there, and then things are going to change in the future. People are going to have to get some skills or else they're not going to make it. You're not going to make it in the technological world without any skills. As crime gets better with technology, you're going to see a lot more people be scared of AI, but then you're also going to see a lot more cameras everywhere, like in the UK, where there's a camera every 5 feet, like there was in China, where you're scared to death to commit a crime because it'd be like Minority Report. They'll just go like this and they know who you are instantly. You know, they're trying to digitalize all the money. As soon as they can do that, a government can control you like nobody's business. So there's all these different things that are going on, and there's people that just have no idea because they're not paying attention. They don't read the news. They're, oh yeah, okay, whatever, you know, I'm on TikTok this week, it's great, and that's it. And you know, it's going to be really hard for those people to adapt. When, you know, look, I will pick on one family that I hate really bad, which is the Kardashians. My bad. Sorry, my apologies. You know, don't know what them gals gonna do when the world takes a poop and nobody wants to watch them, or we watch them age and they look freakishly scary in another few years when, you know, they put so much plastic and collagen in their butt, lips, and face that, you know, I don't want to see what they look like, and they look like cartoon characters. You know, even looking at pictures and now of, you know, then and now, how much they've changed, right? I think there are times of looking at that kind of stuff, and the culture is going to probably start changing at some point, and we'll get back to more, how do we survive? Maybe how do we survive the machines? I think there will be more pressing issues.
But I think there was like kind of this fear of AI that they will have to get rid of so many jobs of basically blue collar workers, and now it's kind of seems like it's probably the opposite, because they can write poems and like all the things that like people thought white collar workers thought they are more safe than blue collar workers, but it's completely the opposite.
That's how it is right now, but I'll tell you what, I've never thought that. I've always thought that it would be, all jobs would be gone, and here's why. I'll give you an example. Have you heard of the city called Celebration? It's up by Orlando, it's in South Orlando. It was America's first planned city. They planned this whole thing out, streets and everything was all planned out. They had this perfect grid. They've got free Wi-Fi downtown, blah, blah, blah. It's supposed to be this futuristic city. If you don't speak Spanish, don't go there because you won't be able to do anything. So I have friends that live there. That's why I know about it so well. In the future, okay, white collar businesses, if they have more money to throw at AI to get rid of people in the workforce, right? Blue collar isn't going to spend that money, but eventually the technology will get cheap enough where we'll plug in an underground vacuum system where you'll just put your garbage in the thing and it'll suck it out and it'll go to the garbage can, okay? We won't need sanitation engineers anymore. We won't need some of those things. So as the technology gets less expensive, it's the same thing with cars. The most expensive cars had Bluetooth and had this and had that. Now all cars have it, right? So as soon as the technology twiddles down to the cheap of the cheap, even blue collar job people will disappear. So nobody is safe. So that's a myth when somebody says it's white collar, because those industries got the money. They also have, if you're putting that information into a computer, you're giving it data, it has data to do something with. In blue collar jobs, they don't collect a lot of data because there's not a lot of AI there yet, but it's coming. Even truck driver, I'll pick on truck drivers because my uncle was a truck driver. He died during COVID. I'll pick on truck drivers. A long time ago, they had to do everything in logbooks written by hand. Then it became electronic, okay? Just like in the medical field, it was electronic medical records, EMR. When that change occurred, you couldn't go back and fudge numbers and do stuff. Truck drivers used to do that all the time so they could drive extra and make money, fall asleep behind the wheel and, you know, have some accidents and get killed people and blah, blah, blah. Those things happen. Now, because of electronic, they can't cheat the system anymore, right? But now there's a huge demand for truck drivers. Who's the number one group of people going into truck driving? Women. Women are going to truck driving, right? It's no longer a man's thing. It's women are going into truck driving because it pays well.
Like those trucks will be obsolete and.
They are. Okay, so
We have self-driving.
well, okay, so here's the thing. When I was out in Texas, I wrote a paper with a woman who ran a company who did special truck driving things. They delivered specialty items. And she said, we won't go out of business because we have special stuff that, you know, it takes a human to do. She goes, but normal truck driving, that'll be obsolete, right? Because they'll have self-driving. Now, when I was in China, I rode on a self-driving bus. And I got on the bus and it was like, ni hao. I was like, ni hao. You know, put my money in, did my thing, sat down, and it took me to where I needed to go. There was no person, right? And Coors Light, they already did a tractor trailer test run with a Coors Light truck full of beer, prized possession there, and it made it. So it's gonna come, but here's what needs to happen. Infrastructure in America hasn't been updated in a long time. We have roads collapsing, bridges collapsing, buildings collapsing, okay? Because we build it once and we just think it'll last. We're Europe, okay? You can't say, oh, this has been here since the 1300s, it's still here, okay? We don't build things like that make it that long, apparently. And people don't do good maintenance. They just go, oh yeah, okay, whatever. So stuff falls down, stuff falls apart. Stuff isn't built 200-mile-an-hour proof for a hurricane, fire, wind, right? I got people who will argue with me all day long. They're like, I don't want to build the Miami-Dade standard. They're like, that's just for wind. I'm like, you know what? I think you should be built 23 feet up, and I think you should be built for 200-mile-an-hour winds. So if it rains, it fires, or it blows, or it floods, you'll still be here, and so will your home, and I won't have to pay so much insurance. That's just the thought, right? But as everything is aging in our country, you can already see that things don't last that long. And so will there be a need for better built things? Absolutely. But as that comes, is that going to be human built? Probably not, right? So a lot of stuff's going to change. It's all going to go to AI. I mean, the only reason why China doesn't use AI to build buildings is because they would have way too many people sitting around doing nothing. And idle minds, people do stuff, yeah. So I watched our 8-story administration building get built in 90 days. I was like, 90, that would never get built that fast in America in 90 days. And it was built one brick at a time with a line of 100 Chinese guys handing a brick to each other in a snake and then putting it in. And I was like, this is gonna get built in 90 days? And my friend was like, watch. I said, why can't they just use it? He goes, you gotta give all these people some jobs. So I learned. So educational levels will change. I can remember a long time ago where the bachelor's degree was all you really needed. And then pretty soon it became, you had to have a master's degree to do things. You know, and then you got people, you know, the PhD world came around, but only 2% of the planet has a PhD. And less than that is females with PhDs. So again, education kind of, it differs depending on country that you're in. A lot of US companies started in the 80s and they started educating China. Every college campus I was at that had 40 or 50,000 students at it, or 100,000 students at it, there was 15 to 20 colleges from Australia, from England, from America there. Everybody trying to make their money and educate them at Chinese kids. India doesn't know what to do with all its kids, and they're desperately trying to hire people to come. But for $800 a month, I'm not packing up and moving to Mumbai. Just not doing it. It's not worth it for me. Africa now is the new thing, and if you can put internet in their hands, other than 3G, as I had students over there last year, 3G on a flip phone. I'm like, you cannot do a college class on a flip phone, 3G. But if you can give them internet, that's going to be the next marketplace, and that's where everybody's putting their, China's investing heavily over there. Everybody knows that that's where you need to invest because that's the biggest growth next.
Elon Musk and the Starlink.
Oh, he's trying. Elon
He's
Musk.
trying.
He's trying to be a global entity. I know after the hurricane, one of the rich old dudes that lives in my development, he had Starlink. He was like, oh, I can provide internet. And like, I don't think I saw anybody more proud than that dude. I'm like, we all had like one bar. And he's like, I give it. I was like, all right, dude. Privacy issues. Here's a strange question. So yeah, we're on camera now, blah, blah, blah. But like when I was in China, I had a camera in every corner of every classroom. When I was in Cuba, there was a dude outside my class with an M16. When I was in China, they all had guns outside my classroom, making sure that, I didn't say anything bad. And then they listen in on every single thing. But when I went to the bank, all I had to do was show my face in the ATM. It took a picture and it knew who I was and it could give me my money and I didn't have to have an ATM card. So that was kind of cool. But privacy issues, it's the way I look at it. Have anybody ever plugged your phone in at work?
No.
Never to plug it in to charge it?
Not my personal phone, not on my work computer. Heck no, because once you do, it downloads it.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. If you plug your phone in, not to USB, but to charger, electric, most companies will consider that electricity theft.
Yeah.
And that should be considered a benefit. So someday in the future, when they say free car charging, okay, then you'll get phone charging and laptop charging and everything else. But some people will charge their phone at work, and that's super taboo. But if you use your work's internet on your phone, nothing is private now. They have rights to everything. So I tell the people this: as long as you're not doing nothing shady, I could care less. Like, go ahead and look. Like, what am I doing? Like, I thought that up until about 2016. And then in 2016, I had a law enforcement officer. I went to do a recruiting event, and I had a leopard skirt on. I will never forget this. I've never worn leopard since then. I had a leopard skirt on, went to the event, and this guy must have taken a picture of me or something and sent it to his wife and said, look at this girl recruiting for us today. That girl found my Facebook, found a picture of me in a swimsuit down in Key West. I'm like, hello, it's Key West. Found a picture of me in a swimsuit with a bunch of military people and said, this bleepity bleep is, recruiting, da 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 da, she's a sexual, blah, blah, blah. She said that all the way to the president of the university. And then my boss took a private jet and flew down and had a chat with me. And I was like, this is my private Facebook account. She said, well, you need to put that crap on lock. I was like, why am I in trouble for living a life in a swimsuit? Like, I didn't sleep with a student. I didn't do anything wrong. I said, you got some wackadoodle who he's probably cheated on his wife and that's why this girl's crazy. And my boss was like, you just need to lock everything up and make everything ultra private. And I was like, I had 15,000 followers and I had 5,000 friends on Facebook, and I cut down to 150 people. And it just made me so sad because I was on fishing magazines. I did all kinds of stuff back then. I was really popular, and I just got rid of everybody and said, okay, all because of that crap. So I knew what the policy was at work too.
I had to have a Facebook account in order to operate the school's Facebook page. And I said, well, you forced me to have a Facebook account. I said, so I should not be reprimanded. And I didn't get reprimanded, but I gotta lock your stuff down because there's crazy people out there. And that was my first taste of crazy.
Under the umbrella of brings discredit to the organization.
Yep. Yeah, it was kind of upsetting. Now the girl that hacked my Facebook account here, woo, she sent all kinds of stuff to people. And said all kinds of crap, but I mean, nothing sexual or inappropriate or anything. She just said I was a homewrecker and all kinds of other crap, but yeah, so not pleasant, but you know, it's the first time any of my accounts had gotten hacked. That was interesting. Had never experienced anybody who had hacked any of my stuff before. A lot of people have been really cautious. I've had friends that won't even talk to me because when I came back from China, they were petrified of me. They're like, oh, I was like, oh my Lord, seriously? They're like, well, your phone. I was like, because I was in China. And I said, every single thing we buy in America is made over there. And if you think this stuff ain't listening, you are seriously like, that's why we got kicked out of Germany. We were going to do a new contract with Germany and build all their phones. And they said, well, out of all the companies that came, Huawei made us a better deal because all of you have a backdoor for listening on everything that we do. But Huawei's was less money and they listen in. And I'm like, but US was your ally. Like, why would you? I'm like, it was really like you could have came back and countered, I think, and would have had the contract through the US versus Huawei. And that's just how it's going to be now. So interesting to say. Employee rights, privacy issues. Again, these are some scary topics just because of all the interesting stuff that's going on in the workplace right now. Work attitudes, that's definitely changed. I don't go to the mall here because it's absolutely sad. I don't even like the mall in Naples. I don't like these hours that closes at 8 o'clock at night. Like I just don't like this stuff. Out in Hawaii, everything closed at 8 o'clock at night. You know why? Because you only have to have one shift of people if things close at 8, because you open 11, you do 11 to 8. Now in Orlando, I think Ross, for example, opens at 9 in the morning and doesn't close till 11 at night. Ross here used to be open until 10:30, and now all of a sudden it's closed at 8:30. It's closing before TJ Maxx, and I'm like, what happened, Ross? Like, what's going on over here? I was mortified. I was like, what? You guys are always open late. Like, how are you closing before TJ Maxx and Marshalls now? What's going on with Ross?
Cost saving.
I guess that and theft and all that other crap that happens. Walmart out in California has camping tents behind glass and lock and key because people steal the tents to live on the street. Like Tide Pods are in lock boxes now because too many kids decide to eat those stupid things. So attitudes in the workplace, I would say there's not a lot of happy people in the workplace. I'll go to like retail places and rarely does somebody say, have a great day, how are you doing? Did you find everything you were looking for? Rarely do I hear those words. Publix grocery store chain, they teach those people, they have to say that. I don't think TJ Maxx, Ross, Marshalls, I don't get that very often. Every once in a while I'll get somebody who will say something really nice and I'll be like, whoa, hi, how are you? Walmart, no, it depends which Walmart I'm at. If I'm at the one where all the seniors are working in Estero, it's magical and everybody's nice. If I go to some other ones, not so much. The Dollar Tree, the Dollar General, I don't think I've ever had a positive experience there.
I feel like they're so understaffed. There's just one person.
They're understaffed. There's only one person, absolutely true. And then that person is so overworked and overwhelmed, or they've just had a miserable life and they're getting paid garbage and they're just miserable. There's nothing positive about it. They're not going to be upbeat, and cheery, they're not making good money there. I would say.
But I think it's Walmart. I think it's Walmart where they have a policy where employees, if you are looking for something, they're not allowed to point to the aisle, they have to walk to it or something.
Not to Walmart anymore, not Walmart, Lowe's will walk you to the aisle. Because here's the thing, there's a couple of reasons for that. They want to take you there now and say, hey, this is what's going on, right? You're not allowed to do this. This is incredibly offensive. You're supposed to do this. This is what Disney does. Disney will go straight away, right? Because pointing is super taboo. But yeah, I if I could find a human at Walmart to help me find something, that would be fantastic. But those days, I don't know where they went. I can tell you this. I can remember when Walmart first opened in the town an hour from me when I grew up. We lost a bunch of Kmart's, kind of went away. This Walmart opened, and it opened on Thanksgiving weekend, the Black Friday, everybody goes shopping, and everybody was in the parking lot, and I heard this bugle, the da 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 da. I was like, oh, the doors are opening, and you get to see hundreds of people running to the store. I saw people get run over by shopping carts. I saw women punching women and beating each other up over tickling the elbows. Like, I just saw chaos going on, and my mom wanted to go because she wanted to get stuff from my dorm room, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, we're gonna die up in here, Mom. This ain't good. And we got out of there, but like we hit 3 people with shopping carts. I mean, like they rammed into us and tried to take the stuff out of our cart. And my mom was like, do something. And I was like, what am I supposed to do to this lady? I'm not gonna hit her. So it was just pandemonium. But you know, when Walmart's first opened, that was kind of the chaos it was. And now it's like they're pulling out of California and San Francisco. They're pulling out of Chicago because they're just getting robbed every single day. I mean, if you've ever gone in on a Sunday night when they're stocking, that's the worst time to go. I mean, it's scary in there. But I mean, every once in a while, you'll meet some people in there that are friendly, but I mean, it just depends on where they are in life, if that's their primary job or if it isn't their primary job. So,
But also, you don't really expect that.
well, here's the thing. Here's where I do expect customer service. If I'm checking out, look up at me and say hello, or say acknowledge that I'm alive as a human being. If I get to customer service, what do you want? That is not the tone to take with me, okay? Like, hey, I got a problem, this is broke, or this fell apart, or I need to return it. You got your receipt.
Yeah, that's what it forces you to do. Let's go do a self checkup.
Well, and you don't want no part, you don't ever want to have to return something because yeah, it's horrible. So I do kind of expect there to be customer service because I remember when there was. You have a job. Your job is not supposed to be nasty to people.
I mean, for me, it's just the difference between Austria, Europe, and here.
Yeah.
Everything, even the crappiest place here is nicer than everything. So.
Yeah. I will say there was no customer service in China. You can't return anything in China. You go to check out and there's no being nice. The only time anybody was nice to me was when I was in Macau. Hong Kong people were friendly, but they were British. Like, they were like, hello, and they bumped into you and they said, sorry. And in China, somebody will smack at you, they'll just look at you. I had people who spit loogies on my shoes and they were smushed against me with no arm, no deodorant on, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die. No regard for personal space. The guy pushed all of us in the train to get us in there. I came home and I was so happy there was space and nobody
But
spit
it's
on me.
normal for them.
It is.
It's
Yeah. Well, no, it's rude when you got lower class people. I learned my lesson because when I was in Macau, it's kind of like lifestyles of the rich and famous. You see Rolls Royces everywhere. Nobody there would ever watch a little girl in a dress just pee on the curb. But when I was in poor cities, you would see somebody, and this little girl came out and just peed next to me and peed all over my shoes. And she just popped a squat on the sidewalk as I was waiting for the bus. And I was like, and my friend goes, you know, lower class. And I was like, oh, right. And I was like, okay. But when I got to the farming areas, like that was okay. I mean, people just peed on the side of the road because there's no rest stops. You know, and women's toilets don't really happen over there either. It's just a hole in the ground and that's it. So yeah, I mean, I adjusted, I adapted. A lot of the students laughed at me because my hair goes down to my butt and the cockroaches would be climbing up my hair as I had to pop a squat. And I was like, you know, I said, this is tough, But I said, I got this, I'll make it, right? And they all brought me a can of spray and I sprayed my room down the next day, but you know, you have to have a good work attitude, I think, when you're going to pack up and go to a completely different culture, different country. If you're not gonna be open to things, learn, have fun, do stuff, like every weekend I traveled, students always wanted to know what I learned this week about things, you know, and I taught them things that they didn't even know about their own place. Pretty soon, by the end of the semester, I had like 3 cars of kids who wanted to go shopping with me because I found all the fake places to go. And, you know, everybody thought I was Russian and I was like, yes, I'm running around, you know, shopping, having a good time. So I made the most of it, you know, like at the beginning, it was kind of rough. I was kind of worried I wasn't going to make it. I thought I was going to die of starvation because, you know, I didn't see any food to eat the first 3 days. And then I finally started exploring and finding that, you know, oh, I could eat that. I could eat this, I could eat that. So then it was fine. And then I found out I loved dim sum, and then that was it for me. Like life, dim sum was just a part of things. But so it was interesting. Cuba was definitely different. You know, everybody there is just so happy.
I mean, that's what everyone told me, like, go to Cuba as long as it's still nice and has like its old Cuban charm.
Well, and it was beautiful. I was there for a month. I went there on a boat. And it was great because they are very welcoming. They are embracing, you know, because that's where they make their money is tourism, and they know that. And so, but everybody I was with was from Europe. I mean, I was with all these German dudes. Like, I met nobody from, you know, the US that was there because, you know, back then it was still legal to go when I went. But when I was in Australia, everybody in Northern Australia that I was with was all from China because that's the first big trip that they take. And then I went island hopping with some German guys that I had met and some French guys. I climbed the Sydney Harbour Bridge with a bunch of guys from France. And yeah, I mean, I just everywhere I went, I met people and traveled and did things. And, you know, I was always alone. So people were like, oh, it's weird. You're a woman and you're alone. And I'm like, I had to learn
traveling by myself.
I had to learn to say solamente, uno, solo. I had to learn to say single in every language so that everybody would understand I wasn't waiting for somebody. Finally, family concerns. A lot of times, if you've got your parents moving in with you, you've got kids, some sort of crisis has happened, you've got a disability, you've got anything that's going on with your family, that's where concerns kind of arise, where people are like, how am I going to work? Is work going to be okay with me? You know, maybe missing work, or maybe I have to have a hybrid work schedule or flexibility or something like that. Work concerns are getting more and more prevalent, especially since more and more people are having health concerns. And so employers are going to have to start doing better at figuring things out. I will wrap up real quick. So as you guys go through these PowerPoints, take a peek at some of these things. There's only 2 PowerPoints to go through other than the other one that's embedded. But downsizing, outsourcing, and offshoring. 3 important terms to know for this week, for sure. You know, what does it mean when a company downsizes? And if you look at the trends between downsizing, so 9/11, lots of people downsized because a lot of people just said, oh, we're not doing this, we're not doing it. A lot of people laid people off. Southwest Airlines, one of the few companies that didn't lay anybody off. If we look at outsourcing, that's what most of HR has become at this point, is outsourcing. We've gotten rid of it, and it's going to India, the Philippines, or China. Those are the 3 biggest companies that we outsource everything to. And then when it comes to offshore, we've sent jobs to other countries. So again, look at how we do these things. The other things on here that are you know, definitely making differences are going to be automation and using more AI. Those are going to be things. So it's not going to be, we're not going to send jobs to other countries. You know what? I'll save you even more money, more time. I will keep it here in house. So as right now you see everybody going to other countries to do stuff, in the future you'll probably see more people pull back. And I didn't used to think that, but something recently I read has changed my mind. I was thinking that at some point, someday, you could get anything you wanted from anywhere in the world, because that's kind of like how I feel like we are right now. But I kind of think we're going to get to this point where we're going to go the opposite direction. And it's going to be, I can do more on my own. I'm more self-sufficient, and I won't depend on other countries. And I think COVID kind of was the wake-up call for that. I think a lot of countries realized they are not independent. You can't depend on another country for everything, right? 78% of medical goods get made in China. Microchips get made in China. Good Lord, we couldn't get anything made, you know, there. We're still a year out from Dell making its chip factory in Texas. So a lot of these things are changing. A lot of these things are happening. So again, things to think about. So I will wrap class up there. As you guys work on your resume, if you submit, I'll go through it. I'll give you some highlights. If at any point during this class, you want to send me a copy or you want to bring a copy of it physically to class, I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and go over it with you, because that's one of the things I do privately outside for business. So, but again, Indeed.com, best resource there is, because it actually has sample cover letters, sample resumes for every industry that you want to look at. So we're going to look at cover letters, we're going to look at resumes, we're going to look at a bunch of different things in here. Maybe do a SWOT analysis on yourself, find out what your strengths, your weaknesses are, what opportunities do you see, and what things are a threat to you. Always something to be looking at. Do I got any questions from anybody?
Yep, I'm good, doctor.
All righty, I will see you guys next week.
Thank you.
All right, bye.